Coming up next, live coverage of the Irondequoit Zoning Board on ICAT Government Access. Coming up next, live coverage of the Irondequoit Zoning Board on ICAT Government Access. Coming up next, live coverage of the Irondequoit Zoning Board on ICAT Government Access. Coming up next, live coverage of the Irondequoit Zoning Board on ICAT Government Access.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone to the August meeting of the Irondequoit Zoning Board of Appeals. Before we get underway hearing of cases, there's a few preliminary matters I need to address. First, the fire exit is located to your left. In the event of a fire, you will be notified by an announcement. If so notified, please move in a calm and orderly fashion out of the room and use either the north or the south stairs to leave the building. Our meetings are being recorded by our Secretary, Michelle, for the purpose of a record and not as a verbatim transcript, and she uses those notes to prepare the minutes of our meetings. So to help her, when you come to the podium, it would be appreciated if you would identify yourself each time that you come to the podium and speak clearly and loudly, well, not too loudly, into the microphone. We follow the items on the agenda in the order that they appear on the agenda. Copies of the agenda are available at the table next to the doorway. Once the case is called, the applicant or their representative will come to the podium, identify themselves, state their address, pause a moment, raise their hand to be sworn, and then present their case. During the presentation of the case by the applicant or their representative, the members of the board have an opportunity to ask questions or engage in discussion with the applicant. When that process is completed, we then open each case to public input. The public input portion, I'd ask that those who wish to participate line up appropriately on the west side of the room. We have identified 3 categories of public input. First, we ask for those who are in support of the application to speak. Then we ask those who are opposed to the application to speak. And a couple of years ago, a third category was identified of people who aren't in favor of it or opposed to it, but they want to talk to us about something related to the application. And we take that category third. So if there's a different category that we haven't hit yet, we'll add that one too. Once we've heard from those who wish to speak in favor, who are opposed, and who just wish to talk to us about the case, then we will give the applicant or their representative the opportunity to return to the podium and respond to any issues that were raised during the public input portion. When that's completed, the hearing is closed. Once the hearing is closed, we will move on to the next case on the agenda until we've completed all of the cases. Once we've completed all the cases, the board will take a short break. And then we will come back and we will deliberate and determine the cases that are on the agenda in the order that they appear on the agenda and for which the applicant or their representative remains present. So if the first applicant has left, but the second applicant is present, we would take the second case first. Then we would move down and take the cases of those who are remaining. And then we would go back to the top, take the first case, and continue until we've finished all the cases. During the deliberation and decision portion of the meeting, there is no further public input. The board, unless the board requests it, which doesn't happen often, but occasionally, the one thing I forgot to mention, any comments that are made during the public input portion are made to the board, not to the applicant. There's no discussions between the applicant and those in attendance. As I said, no further inputs allowed during the deliberative stage, but you're welcome to stay and see our deliberations. They're broadcast on TV if you don't wish to stay. You can go home and catch them on TV, or you can call the town hall at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning and ask for the Planning and Zoning Department, and they will be glad to tell you what decision we made. So, having concluded all of that, we will now take up the cases on our agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item on the agenda is case number ZB 1908-1. Upon the matter of request by Kathleen and Anthony Creighton for an area variance to continue parking a non-conforming commercial vehicle on premises 80 Cambria Road in an R1 residential district.
Anthony Creighton, 80 Cambria Road.
And Kathleen Creighton from 80 Cambria Road.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, do I start?
You start.
Sorry. All right. So there is a correction to the variance that I applied for. I guess I had filled out the wrong area. That's a use variance, I would assume.
No, this is
No.
actually an area variance you're seeking, yep.
Okay.
A use variance is a much different request and has a different burden for the zoning board that have to review it. So the area variance is what you're seeking.
Okay. So basically, what's going on is I have an old 97 Ford F-350 cube van. It's a 12-foot cube van. And that's my primary means of income for myself and my family. I purchased the van because I do windows, doors, siding, things like that. I need the space in it in order to do the trim work on the outside of the customer's property. I need a 10-foot 6 brake table to do that. Upon looking into, I got something from the town stating that I was in violation, and I guess I wasn't 100% clear on everything, because it states that the general requirements were gross vehicular weight up to 10,500 pounds as indicated on the manufacturer's rating label. I'm assuming that you guys got a copy of everything that I've brought in prior to this. Gross vehicular weight is the actual weight of the vehicle. Gross vehicular weight rating, GVWR or whatever, would be what's on the actual the door and whatnot. In the letter that was given to me by the town, it stated that it was a cube van, and under restrictions, it didn't say cube van, I'm sorry, it was a box truck. And I didn't see any of that under the restrictions for vehicles prohibited. As far as the vehicles exceeding any of the 2 dimensions, for sure it does exceed the height. It does not exceed the width, which is 84.5 inches wide. And the length, I guess, is 20 feet. Upon further investigation, I discovered that it's 21 feet. I don't know if we go technical as far as ornaments on the vehicle. If you were to take the bumpers off, I guess, then it would be under, or I'm not 100% sure. So I'm here today because I'm seeking permission to be able to go about my daily life, and I don't anticipate on doing any advertising on my property. I don't have decals on the vehicle. just been trying to keep things very minimal, low-key, very small business, owner-operator. That's pretty much it. I mean, our driveway, it's not very big, but we can fit that truck in there and my wife's minivan without being in the sidewalk. So there's no way I could even possibly have a bigger truck. The other thing is under your trailer codes or regulations, it states that you can have a trailer max, enclosed trailer that's a max of 12 feet, which is not possible for me to do, which is why I purchased that vehicle in the first place, because there's no way I'm going to, with a limited driveway that I have, that I'm going to be able to park a trailer in there, a truck, and another vehicle. It's been brought to my understanding if I were to put another driveway in, well, that's just not going to happen, I guess, because you're not allowed 2 driveways, from what I understand. So I guess that's why we're here today, is to get more clarity and try to figure out what I can do to stay within the confines of the ordinances.
All right, and just to note for the record, we also received a statement signed by 8 of the, oh, excuse me, more than 8. 17 residents residing at 90 Cambria Road, 108 Cambria Road, 96 Cambria Road, 69 Ganado Road, 27 Ganado Road, 19 Ganado Road, 66 Ganado Road, 72 Ganado Road, 52 Cambria, 92 Cambria, 30 Cambria, 22 Cambria, 86 Curtis, 71 Kiwanis, 43 Cambria, 51 Cambria, and 122 Cambria. And those neighbors all indicated that they were supportive of your request. Anyone have any questions for the applicant?
Have you looked into parking the truck somewhere else? Somewhere up on Ridge Road East where you could store it at night and leave your personal car there and not have to have it in the driveway?
Where's Ridge Road East, sir?
Where's Ridge
Well,
Road?
like, whereabouts, where would I be able
A
to?
lot of properties, commercial properties on Ridge Road East,
Okay,
and like the U-Haul up on Ridge Road East. I know people have rented spots to park their vehicles there.
well, currently, that's my primary vehicle for transportation for the most part. Yeah, I'm a very from the ground up kind of guy. It's, you know, you want me to build your house, I'll build your house. You want me to fix the car, I'll fix the car. I mean, that's what I do. And I do have another vehicle. Currently, I've been parking the cube van for now at Wegmans till we get some kind of an answer. But at the end of the day, it wouldn't matter. When one truck goes down, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to drive that truck home. So I could keep alternating back and forth.
Is the other truck the regular cargo van that was in the driveway when I drove by?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
That particular van is an allowable van to leave in your driveway.
correct.
So my recommendation would be find a permanent home for the cube van so that you can just drive your other van over to it and leave that for the day and take your cube van on your jobs.
Okay.
You know, no matter how we cut it, it's an oversized commercial van in an R1 residential neighborhood. So it doesn't fit, even though you're making it fit, but
Right.
it just doesn't.
Well, under your codes, there were, under the exceptions, under F or whatever, it says construction vehicles and equipment while actively and necessarily employed in construction or other real property improvements.
That's referring to if you were doing work at the site,
Right.
that you could park it there. while you were working on
A customer's,
that house, a
like a
customer's
customer's
house.
house.
Okay, and I guess what I'm not understanding either, okay, so I understand what you're saying with parking, finding another area to park that truck. Okay, well, the truck that you did see, when that's broke down, I'm not gonna stop the business. I gotta still make a living. So that, one way or another, that truck could potentially have to come back to my property, and I'm gonna have to park it in the driveway. I'm not gonna have a choice. You know, I work on all those trucks. That garage has absolutely, it does nothing for us. The minivan doesn't even fit in it. So I've thought about, okay, what if I knock the driveway or the garage out and build a bigger garage? Because apparently, I guess you could park, if I had an enclosed garage, I could park it in a garage. Problem is where the driveway is located, the landing is right there at the front door. It's a big concrete landing, so it would be a lot of extensive structural modification just to try to, I would have to move my whole stairs back. That goes down in the basement. So there's really no way that I'm going to gain anything by taking the existing garage out. And the other thing is, you know, as I stated earlier, I work on everything. So I work on that truck. I work on all our vehicles. So, you know, that's pretty much what I do out of that garage. It's just maintaining sweat equity the hard way, you know. I'm not paying for a mechanic or whatnot. It's just doing what I got to do.
At the end of your street, there's a house that faces Cambria that has a three-car garage to the west of the house, right?
Yeah, that white one.
The center door on that garage is very high. Have you explored even whether or not that neighbor is using that or would be willing to let you store it there?
I have not, sir.
All right, because that's one alternative. Another one, as Mr. LaPerry was suggesting, is there's places to store vehicles. I mean, you're not the first one who's come in front of us to make this request. We've had people who were employed by Time Warner, now Spectrum, who've come to us and said, well, I've got to keep my truck on for my employer. We've denied them and told them to find another place to park it, and they have. We've denied other contractors, and the reason is because although your neighbors don't seem to have a problem with it, it is not in keeping with the zoning ordinance. And our responsibility as a board is to grant exceptions when there's a hardship that's related to the property, but not a personal hardship necessarily. And
Right.
and we are obligated to, if we determine that a variance is appropriate, we're obligated to make it the minimal variance that that correlates with the articulated need for the variance. And the variance runs with the land.
Right.
So if you were to sell the house, then somebody else could bring in a vehicle because we'd allowed it. And we haven't in the past been, really open to allowing commercial vehicles parked in the driveways. And now the van that was parked there, as Mr. LaPerry noted, I saw it that was there. That's fine. You may be able to. There's a parking lot just up the road from you on Ganado Drive. You might be able to park it there. It's half a block from your house. I don't know who owns. I think the church owns that parking lot, but it's
I already
tied
tried.
with the library.
I tried that. I couldn't do that. I'm sorry.
Well,
So-
all I'm saying is that there are other options that
Right.
you might need to explore.
So basically, what you guys are getting at then is that it's acceptable to have a 30-foot trailer with a bump out in your driveway, but it's not acceptable to have a work vehicle.
You're talking about an RV?
Yeah.
RVs are specifically allowed in driveways between sometime in April and the end of October. There's a special provision for that boats, other kinds of trailers, those, yes, those are specifically allowed under the ordinance. If the town board wishes to amend the ordinance to allow the parking of commercial vehicles in driveways in residential areas, they're free to do that. They're the town board. Our job is not to make the laws. Our job is to look at the ordinance, look at the applications, and determine whether or not the applicant sets forth a basis for a hardship that's sufficient under the case law that's been established to warrant granting a variance. And if so, then to grant the minimal variance that's necessary to accommodate the hardship.
Right. So with the hardship, I've heard you say that a few times, and I understand about the personal hardship. But the driveway and the size of it and the location of the garage, there's nothing I can change about that. I wasn't there when the house was built. In theory, we have a nice side lot, and if I were there, I would have probably had the driveway on the other side of the house, you know, and had a garage probably detached in the back, and this probably wouldn't even be an issue. But, you know, my wife purchased the house in 2009. We met each other in 2013. I moved in with her. We've done a lot of repairs, done plenty of things to the house to upgrade it and maintain it. But as life goes on and you have a family and things like that, responsibilities get bigger, bills get bigger. So, I mean, that's pretty much where I'm at right now. It's just trying to support my family and be able to park the truck in the driveway. And if I need access to my tools and things, and I have to maintain the vehicles, and that'd be fine. I mean, I could park it somewhere, but if it needs to be fixed or maintained, I mean, you're saying that I can't work on my vehicle.
Well, I'm also looking at the information that was provided to us along with your application. And unless I'm reading this wrong, it appears to me that as early as February of 2017, 2.5 years ago, this issue was brought to your attention by the town. And then you were notified of that, and it was resolved because the truck was parked on the street, not in your driveway. And then,
Yes, sir.
then it indicates that there was another contact with the town later that same year in 2017. That was also closed. And then there were other issues later that year. So this isn't something that all of a sudden is, you know, coming up to your attention. This has been going on, it appears, for several years, correct?
Just past few years. Most of the time, the truck is parked on a job site. I do try to limit parking it in the driveway. But there are times where one truck's not working and I got to get home somehow. So it is my primary vehicle. You have the information. It's registered for under 10,000 pounds. So even if you put it on the scales, I've driven that truck. I know everything about that truck and its max payload and whatnot. And as far as a weight issue, yeah, that's not even really, according to your town code, it's gross vehicular weight, but gross vehicular weight is the actual weight of the vehicle. So, I mean, I guess we could put it on a weigh scale or something and go that route.
Excuse me, Chairman, may I just interrupt? For the purposes for the board or for clarification, this was identified as a vehicle that's restricted under Section E of the Commercial Code, classifying it as a freight van or truck, so that any vehicle of this size, even though it's unlisted trucks or commercial vehicles that aren't expressly listed, then you have to look at the size and weight limitation to determine if it's allowed or not allowed. In our determination, this was a restricted type, just based on the type of vehicle it was, and that we believed it fit into the freight van or truck type, and that's expressly indicated as a not permitted.
Mr. President, can I just address one thing? I did speak to two of his neighbors at 69 Ganando and 90, who also appear on the sheet, and they indicated that there was no problem parking the van. But I also want to bring what I hear him saying is that somehow the government is preventing him from earning money for his family. And I just want to bring in, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the law exists to prevent wear and tear of the streets, to protect other citizens. So the law isn't punitive to the individual. It actually looks like the whole cost of the community to pay for the extra weight on the streets, the extra weight and damage to resident streets. Am I correct in that following? So it's not an individual attack. It is protecting the community from extra costs that the community would have to bear in order for him to keep the vehicle on the street. Is that correct?
Yes, it also relates to provisions that the town board has enacted, and all of these provisions apply throughout the town. They're not targeted to any individual, and they're a result of a determination by the town board many years ago that these are the things that help preserve a quality of life in the town that the town board and has determined is what the residents of the town are looking for. And I know we've been told in the past that, lots of commercial vehicles in a neighborhood tend to depreciate home values. They're unsightly in some people's mind, and that's,
Right.
like I said, if the town board wants to amend the ordinance, they're free to do that. But our question is, we're asking us to give you an exception, and then your neighbor may want an exception on the same basis, and maybe somebody else down the street then will want a basis. I know with
understand
my
this.
neighbor, I had a problem for a while with someone who thought they could park a dump truck in a driveway, and it's prohibited under the same ordinance, and eventually they got the message that dump trucks and commercial vehicles and things like that are not allowed in residential neighborhoods.
Right. I mean, we've had the police called a few times on us, and they're pretty much in the same boat. There's nothing that we can do here because you're not doing anything wrong. So obviously there's a little bit of discrepancy there between the police department and you guys. And from reading everything that I had read with your ordinance, I figured, okay, well, I don't see anything wrong with what I'm doing.
I mean, there are, not to bring up the whole list, but going back to April of 2014, there are a number of complaints on the property, ranging from the vehicles in the road or on the lawn, on the front lawn, cars with no plates on them, cars sitting up on jack stands, trailers in the side yard, debris in the side yard, and so on and so forth. So the fact that in taking into being a good neighbor and a respectful neighbor to your neighbor's property and what they have to view on a daily basis, we have factors that we go by. Well, number one of the factors is the character of the neighborhood, the change of the character of the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So if all these are affecting the overall aesthetics and character of your neighborhood, even though some of your neighbors are okay with it, they're obviously like you and your wife and family, so they're okay with it. But in general, it does affect the overall environment, and it is, again, these are the factors we have to go by. So
Right.
there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 pages of other stuff that has been knocked at your door and sent to you about different issues, And
Right.
if it isn't one thing, it carries on to something else.
Well, that would be, basically being profiled.
Well, I don't know that
And being
anybody's
a-
profiling.
Well, it's an individual,
It's just a matter of,
it's one individual complaining or two, and they just, for some reason, they have an issue. Like, we've corrected all those violations. I drive around every street. I got a 3-year-old daughter. I've walked around every street. By all means, we're nowhere near as bad as a lot of other people.
and I'm not saying you are.
So
I'm not saying you are.
we just
but
we get these letters, and it's just kind of a channel of harassment. And it's like, okay, well, all right, things happen. We had a toilet bowl, thought it was out of the way for a minute. As I said, I'm a contractor. I was going to put it in the van, throw it out when I got the dumpster, but apparently you guys got 10-day deadline, and by the time we got the letter, it was like, oh, we're a day late, a buck short on that one.
The only reason I brought up the prior complaints is because it related to this particular vehicle, and it was brought to your attention 2.5 years ago. All right? That
Right.
was my point. Not that there had been a complaint, not that because there had been other complaints when you applied for this, did you read the 5 factors that we're required to consider?
Yeah, I looked into
Right,
everything.
the first one is possible change to the neighborhood character. As I indicated before, if the board has made a determination, and I think it's consistent with reality, that the more commercial vehicles that there are that are parked in residential neighborhoods, it's a detriment to the residential character of the neighborhood. So allowing commercial vehicles would be a change to the character of the neighborhood. The second one, the alternatives that are not requiring a variance. We've talked about those. Parking them at an alternative off-site location,
Right.
parking them at the customer's residence. You just indicate that, well, I need to bring it home, and eventually I'll bring it home if the van breaks down. We told you the van's okay. The substantiality of the request. You're asking us to give you an exception to what has been determined to not be allowed.
I'm asking you
Then
to,
hold on. Then the fourth factor is the effect on the physical or environmental conditions if granted. And then whether the situation is self-created. Now, because self-creation is not necessarily a preclusion of a variance, but this is entirely a self-created situation. That you want to park that vehicle there. That's to
Right.
further your business. It has nothing to do with the shape of the land or the restrictions that are imposed that would limit your use of the property. So if you'd like to address those 5 factors, then, we're open to that, and we can evaluate whether or not we agree with you based on those 5 factors or not. But I haven't heard you really addressing those 5 factors.
well, what I was looking at was, it said you were allowed 1 commercial vehicle in a driveway. As far as the 5 factors,
Where does it, I'm not familiar with that. Where does it say that?
it says it right at the top of your thing there. Forgive me, I don't have the original letter.
Right, well, you're looking at.
It says under commercial vehicles.
Yes, our counsel is pointing out to me that you're looking at section 235-104.1, subsection D, general requirements. And it talks about gross vehicle weight, that 1 such vehicle per dwelling unit would be allowed, personal use by the occupant of the dwelling unit, no parking of storage, those vehicles. Then it goes on to subsection E, which is restrictions. The following vehicle types are prohibited: dump trucks, construction equipment, trailers, tow trucks, buses, semi-tractors and trailers, step vans, freight vans, trucks, flatbed, stake bed equipment or truck, sanitation equipment, all other vehicles exceeding any 2 of the following dimensions. And then it goes into dimensions: 90 inches, body length of 20 feet, body width of 96 inches. So it's not that you are allowed a commercial vehicle. This type of vehicle is prohibited. Other types are allowed, 1 per the residence under subsection D,
Okay.
okay?
Well, then I guess enough said then.
And is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Step right up. If you could move away from the podium so that the people who want to speak can come forward.
Good evening. My name is Jim Raybach, and I reside at 54 Cambria Road.
You don't get sworn, only the applicants get sworn. The public input part, people
Gotcha.
who wish to speak to us and exercise your
Gotcha.
democratic right to participate in government do not get sworn.
Alrighty. I have asked to speak tonight because of the concerns about safety with the trucks that are being used in the business being operated out of the home at 80 Cambria Road. And I do applaud Tony for being an entrepreneur. Small business is certainly very important to our community and to our country, and I myself have been an entrepreneur, self-employed, and worked in small Arundecoit business since 1973, so I appreciate that. But when a truck is in the driveway at number 80, it is very difficult to see the vehicles and pedestrians coming up the street. Oftentimes, the truck's bumper and trailer hitch is over the sidewalk, creating a hazard for walkers, bicyclists, and others using the sidewalk. One has to assume that if the approval is given to park the box truck in the driveway, the van also used by the business would be parked on the street as it was in the past, causing even more issues with visibility. For those of you who may not know, Cambria Road, Ganado Road, Kiwanis Road, and Curtis Road are residential streets that are frequented by many motorists as a cut-through to attempt to avoid the busy Hudson-Cooper-Titus intersections. Westbound vehicles typically move onto Cambria Road from Cooper Road and will quickly go into the westbound lane, assuming it is safe to do so. That is due to the lack of visibility from the van parked in the road. When vehicles enter Cambria from their own driveways or from the T intersections of the other streets, it is not uncommon to have a close call to stop or to have to back up to avoid oncoming vehicles. Also, the on-street parking has created an often muddy route the length of the property on both sides of the street, which is not only an eyesore, but is dangerous to anyone who may be walking or biking on the edge of the street. When the van or truck is parked on the street, oftentimes delivery trucks, refuse trucks, fire trucks, and the town snowplows have a very difficult time getting through and often have to drive on the lawn areas across the street. The trucks are often having mechanical work done on them in the street and in the driveway of the residents, which is somewhat dangerous. Should the truck in the street be accidentally struck, it could cause serious injury to the person doing the repairs. And it is not uncommon to see a vehicle jacked up on the driveway for several days at a time. Heaven forbid a jack should fail or slip and the truck fall on someone. I hope that a solution can be made that allows this business to continue without jeopardizing the safety of the neighborhood. Thank you for your time. I do have some photographs I'd like to submit.
Okay. If you hand them to Mr. Scott, he can pass them around.
Evening. Jeff Graves, 56 Kiwanis Road. 4 years ago, I retired from the highway department as a highway foreman. One of the jobs that I did was, help people with issues and everything like that, like you guys are doing this evening. And I've got to give you a lot of kudos out there because a lot of things that I was going to bring up, you already did. Finding alternate sites, different ways of making it work for Tony. I understand that he has a business. He moved into a residential neighborhood, asking to completely change around the code to conform to him, like you say, could be detrimental to the effect of the neighborhood and other neighborhoods throughout the town. I appreciate your thoughts on that one. Alternate sites definitely are a possibility. Back in the early mid-90s, I ran a tow truck during the summertime, and the code was then enforced. I came to the meeting that night, and the tow trucks were not allowed to be parked out in the road or in the driveways, and I had to find alternate parking. I talked to some of the gas station guys around, and they didn't have a problem with me parking it, over in the evening, and throughout the summer that worked out pretty well like that. Also with the right-of-way issues of if he wants to put 3 vehicles on this property, you're going to have 2 in the driveway. Well, in the wintertime, especially with the snow ordinance, you can't park in the road at night. You can't park it's never permitted to park on the right-of-way. So where's this vehicle going to be? He's going to have to find alternate parking for it anyway. The overall look of what it would do to the neighborhood, the vehicles are not in the best of condition, but, they are what they are. When you had mentioned the environmental effect, again, being with the highway department like that, I dealt a lot with the storm systems. The oil that drips out of the vehicle, I've got some pictures of that also, the damage that's done to the right-of-ways. These are all things that, do bring down property values, do bring down just the overall appeal of the neighborhood, which it's been, fairly nice. I've lived there all my life. I've lived in 3 houses in this neighborhood within the Cambria, Kiwanis, and 2 on Cambria, 1 on Kiwanis all my life. And I've seen a lot of changes. And this type of a change would definitely be detrimental to the neighborhood. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Have a good evening.
Hello, my name is Jason Pennell. I live at 68 Cambria Road, immediately next door to the applicant. I'll keep my comments brief. My concerns echo a lot of that of my neighbors as well. My concern is, yes, the vehicles are frequently on the streets. Over the last several years, it has been an issue. I have some photos I can pass around as well. Living right next door, I have a young one as well. Backing out of our driveway, as Jim pointed out, traffic coming off of Ganado right there, it can be a very big concern. It's difficult to see when the trucks are in the road. And, as I mentioned as well, the damage to the rights of way, it's unpleasant, for lack of a better way to describe it. So, as I said, my comments are brief, but thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Is there anyone who'd like to? Well, you already spoke, sir.
Can I submit these, the photos that I have?
Oh, yes, you can hand them to Mr. Scott. We'll pass them around. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to us about this that's not in favor or opposed? Want to talk to us about commercial vehicles, variances, anything of the like? Seeing none, I'll give the applicant a chance to respond to the public input portion.
Oh, I speak again?
Yes.
Oh. I thought that was it.
Could I speak also?
Sure.
Just a lot of people park on the street, so in regards to, people having to maneuver around vehicles, there's lots of cars that park in the street during the time that's allowed. And of course, we don't park in the street during the winter months, so one of the trucks wouldn't be there 6 months out of the year. My husband is our main provider for the family, so we would
Let me
appreciate,
address that point with you.
yeah.
So for 6 months of the year, you're able to find another place to park this van, and the one that isn't a problem can be in the driveway and not on the street. So why can't that be for the other 6 months as well?
Because all I'm stating is most of the time that the smaller van that's allowed is there. But there are times where there's been times that van's broke down and I need the other van to get home. So the point is all I'm asking for is to be able to have one or the other vehicle. I'm not asking for both of them. I'm just trying to be able to have transportation and be able to do what I need to do for a living. And sometimes a big van's there, and sometimes, I might have to work on it. I mean, if we got to get maybe technical about it, then I guess I'd be working on my van or doing a home repair while I'm maintaining my van or whatever. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, like I said, my wife bought the house 2013. We got together, and then we got married in 2015. So it's not like I really had very many options as far as what house we picked. We're just kind of working with the cards that we're given. So.
And I just want to state, we have done a lot of improvements to the house, so I know the trucks, some of the neighbors don't like the trucks, and, but, we take care of our our lawn, we plant, we mulch. We've done improvements to the house, new roof, new windows, new electrical. So it's not like, it's not totally trashed like a kind of, I feel like it's kind of making it to seem that way, and we're not bad people, and,
We're actually working
you
on
know, we're
stuff.
just working people.
I haven't heard anyone say that you're bad people or that your property is trashed or that you're not taking care and making improvements to the property, but those are all not factors. I read you what the 5 factors are, and
And as far as,
that's not part of that. So,
as far as the safety of it and the visibility and whatnot, that has, with that, what we're here for today is about having a vehicle in the driveway. That's the bottom line. When that truck is backed up to the garage, you can barely see it if you're coming from Curtis. The neighbor to the right of me in the White House has no problem with it. If anything, he's seeing it. So as far as it being a safety hazard, that's a whole nother deal. I mean, that has nothing to do. It's back past the sidewalk. It's on our property. So the ability and whatever, I mean, I'm not really seeing where the safety issue is.
Unfortunately, it's not
Give them my
code
stack of
compliant.
pictures. Well, there's a lot of things that aren't code compliant. Everybody's house is pretty much not code compliant.
is there anything else that you want to add to your presentation that addresses the 5 factors that are set out on the application and that the case law establishes as our standards to use in determining area variances?
No, sir.
Okay, then we will close the hearing with respect to this matter and move on to the next case on our agenda.
Next case on the agenda is case number ZB 1908-2, upon the matter of request by Don Lieber for area variances to construct a new single-family, 2-story dwelling with less than required front and rear setbacks and exceeding maximum permitted lot coverage and maximum permitted driveway square footage on premises 9 Madison Terrace in an R2 residential district.
My name is Don Lieber, 4 Parham Drive. That's in Penfield, actually. I'm here tonight.
Mr. Lieber, if you would raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
I'm here tonight seeking relief from 4 variances, or 4 variances, to build a new home. It is, in fact, a 1-story home, not a 2-story home.
As I read your application, I gathered that you want to build a new home for yourself so you can move out of Penfield and back to Arundecoit, which is a much better place in our
Absolutely.
opinion. And that in order to make it functional, you need to have some variances from the lot restrictions, because otherwise you're basically living in a constructed trailer instead of a house, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
You
And you
are
want to
very-
put up
you-
a new house.
You are very familiar with my letter of intent, so I will not take up your time unless you have questions, of
I
course.
was going to open it up to if the board had any questions. It's a grassy lot right now,
Yes, it is.
and he wants to put a house on it so his taxes can go up.
You didn't say that, did you? Not out loud. They're all about the same size lots in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and this is,
Everything typical.
it's a, I mean, all of these terraces have lots that predate the zoning ordinance, and I don't think there's a single lot in the area that really technically conforms.
There's a couple.
A couple, not many, but a few. House looks very nice, by the way. The only question I did have in looking over the plans, is there a second exit for those bedrooms out of the
Yes,
basement? Okay.
yes, there'll be 2 egress windows, 1 in each bedroom.
Okay.
And there will be area wells.
Okay, I thought that was probably the case. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Lieber?
Trying to figure out, and I know I'm missing it somewhere, how wide is the actual structure? The lot is
29
40.
feet. Wait a minute, I better look at the drawing.
29 foot wide?
No,
29.
yes, 29 feet, 8 inches.
Okay, all right.
And frankly, we did that, I don't know whether anybody noticed this, but the instrument survey, this lot is not a rectangle. It's a very, very slight parallelogram. So I'm going to maintain the 5 feet on each side, and I can maintain the 20 feet, actually it may be a hair less than 20 feet, a hair more than 20 feet front and back, because I actually had to make the house a little bit smaller to fit the square inside the parallelogram. These are not construction drawings, these are preliminary drawings, and the construction drawings will be drawn so that the house fits and maintains the 20 feet if you grant that, front and back, and we will maintain, we may not maintain 5'2", but we will maintain 5 feet.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
The front setback includes the bump out for the garage area, right?
There is no bump out on the garage.
There's no bump out.
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, I'm just looking at the front picture of it.
The garage is the bump up.
Right, the garage is the bump out. If I'm
Well, okay, well, the setback will be to the front
of
of the
the garage.
garage.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll open it up to public input. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Step right up.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Sharon Wiederhold, 497 Rock Beach, and I'm across Rock Beach from them, and I can see kitty corner, so it's very much in my view. And I checked out the plans today, and it's a very nice-looking house. I like it, and I think it fits into the neighborhood very nicely. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of this application? Step right up.
Hello, my name is Joseph Palladino. I live at 3 Delta Terrace, just 2 streets over from the proposed new home. And just in short, I would like to say that I think any new construction in the neighborhood would likely increase the property value of neighboring homes, including my own, and I don't think that the new construction and the proposed variance requests are really outside of the character of the neighborhood as it presently exists, and I support the application.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of this application? Step right up. If there's anyone else who wants to speak in favor or opposed to it, or just talk to us about new construction or whatever, if you could line up along the side so that we can just get through the process a little faster. We have, I think, 9 cases on our agenda tonight, and this is number 2.
Hi, I'm Barbara Katz. I live at 8 Madison Terrace. I am directly across the street from the current vacant lot, and I would be thrilled to death to have a new home there. I welcome the construction.
Thank you. Next.
My name is Bob Otto. I live at 45 Madison Terrace with my wife Carol. We've been at that address for about 14 years. I lived in 3 Madison Terrace for 2 years before I met my wife, and I lived next door to the house where the empty lot is now, which was a drug house. It took the town about a year to arrest the person, and the town wound up knocking a house down. So anything that's can be built there, especially a new house, would add character to our neighborhood. We have 2 zombie houses in our neighborhood now. One's been empty for 14 years. It's leaning 20 degrees to the north. Nothing's been done about that one, and we have another one, 2 houses down from us, 2 north, which has been empty for 6 or 7 years. But anyway, the rumors in the neighborhood, which run rampant when all this goes on, was it's going to be a 2-story. They didn't want 2-story. They didn't want an improvement. Taxes are going to go up. Taxes are already gone up. Our assessment went up $20,000. So anything that someone can come in and do, especially if they're going to own the house, we are for. Our worry sometimes is people coming in, building a house, and being a deadbeat landlord. And we've got a couple of those. So I'm for it. I don't know if anybody else in the neighborhood is. I wish more people would have came, but we hope he builds a house and he's a great neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Good evening. My name is Douglas Knipple. I live at 44 Madison Terrace since November 2015. At the time that I bought the property at 44 Madison Terrace, as my neighbor across the street, Bob, pointed out, there are 2 zombie houses, one immediately next door to my present address, and another one that's across the street, a couple houses down from where Bob lives. And so, I understood that it was a transitional neighborhood at the time I made the purchase of 44 Madison Terrace, and hoping it would go the right way. And I believe it is going the right way. And my initial concerns about this was what is listed on your agenda here, which points to a plan for a 2-story dwelling with exceedances for front and rear setbacks, maximum lot coverage, and driveway square footage. So apparently that plan has been changed since I initially reviewed this material.
I think the 2-story refers to the fact that there are 2 bedrooms that are proposed in the lower level. So that's why it's listed as a 2-story.
Okay, well
because the living space is going to be 2-story, but only 1 floor
Right.
is going to be above ground.
Okay, that's clear. Thank you. And I just wanted to say that in contrast to some of the remarks that my friends and neighbors have made here, I'm not in favor of allowing anything to be built on these tiny lots. And I initially came here to speak to the exceedance of the lot footprint in particular. I also should point out that you may be in an unusual circumstance here because the person who's asking for the area variance is not the present owner of the property, but is instead a prospective buyer of the lot.
My understanding is that he's signed a contract that is contingent upon him obtaining the variance so he can construct the house.
Correct. So I guess what
That gives him a legally recognized interest in the application.
Okay,
because he's a
I just
contract-
wonder if that puts you, this board, in a peculiar situation with regard to determining, for example, the issue of self-inflicted hardship. Because you're actually entering into the middle of a contractual negotiation.
No,
between the buyer and the seller.
Buyer has entered into a contract to purchase the lot, with one of the conditions being that we will approve an area variance so he can construct the residence on the property. If we deny the variance, he's no longer obligated to buy the property. If we grant the variance, he's obligated to go through unless there's some other contingency that falls through.
Okay.
But that gives him a legally cognizable interest in the application.
Okay, thank you. I guess I would like to wrap up my remarks then and say simply that I would like to see you guys, I believe you're all gentlemen here tonight,
Yeah.
to hold the community standard high with regard to the redevelopment of this particular area of Irondequoit, these terraces. And I would hate to see large structures jammed onto these tiny lots, because I don't think that really enhances the quality of the neighborhood or is consistent with the character of the neighborhood. I should also point out that that Mr. Lieber has had the lot surveyed, and his surveyor is in frank dispute with previous surveys and with a covenant in the abstract of the property that defines the property lines according to the existing fences that flank the property. So I just bring that to your attention because perhaps you're not aware of it, but it may enter into your deliberations. And so with that, I'll close my remarks. Thank you.
Can you say that again? The surveyor's covenant is what? Or
There's a in speaking with the seller of the property, he informed me that Mr. Lieber's surveyor has identified property lines that are different from two previous surveys and that seem to contradict a covenant in the abstract of the property that was made by previous owners of that lot and the adjacent property. So
Probably to allow the fence to remain where it is, since it deviates from the property line as shown on the survey. And usually it's an agreement between neighboring, adjoining landowners that because a fence has been there for a while and it doesn't conform, that the neighbor who would have otherwise acquired property that belongs to the neighbor where the fence encroaches on isn't making a claim to the property, and if the fence is replaced or destroyed, it'll be located on the fence line. But that's an issue for Mr. Lieber's attorney to deal with in terms of determining whether or not he's receiving a marketable title to the property as it's represented to be.
Okay, I wasn't sure if that was an issue that would concern this board or not, but I thought I should bring it to your attention.
We appreciate that.
Thank you
very much, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Sir, are you for or against it? I wasn't 100% sure of what your thoughts were.
My initial thought was when I saw two stories that I was against it, and I would ask.
May I ask why?
Because, again, I don't think that jamming large structures into these small lots we have a severe parking problem on this street.
I understand. My curiosity, and I don't mean to, but you said you lived at 44?
Yes.
And you have a two-story newer home too, right?
Well, the front part of the home was built in the 1920s, and the rear part was added on in the early 1990s.
Okay, but I mean, it looks, again.
It's a 2,000 square foot home.
Right, and it's a nice looking home. I just took a look at it.
Thank you.
But I guess my concern was, why would a two-story at your house versus a two-story somewhere else, what's the difference?
Well, the difference is, there are two-story homes on that street and other places.
Right.
And there are also some of these old tent homes that are in various states of decay and deterioration. As we've heard, there are two abandoned ones. And I would like to see a kind of redevelopment of the neighborhood. I'd like to see something in there just like everybody else.
All right.
But I just would prefer to see the zoning board of appeals hold a high community standard in any new development in this neighborhood. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Any other people who wish to speak to this application? For, against, about it, but not for or against? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter and move on to the next item on our agenda.
Next case on the agenda is ZB 1908-3. Upon the matter of request by Joseph O'Donnell, RAAIA, acting as agent for Gino DiGiorgio for an area variance to construct a garage addition exceeding maximum permitted square footage on premises 57 Ridgeport Drive in an R1 residential district.
Good evening. My name,
Great, oh, no, your name and address first,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
my name is Joe O'Donnell from Greater Living Architecture. Offices at 3033 Brighton Henrietta Town Line Road.
And if you could raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
So we're here tonight to seek an area variance for the expansion of the existing garage for Gino DiGiorgio at 57 Ridgeport Drive. The resident is here tonight, so if there's any specific questions relative to the existing property and any other intentions, he would be able to address those as well. Going down through the standards that the board is obligated to review and use as their basis for decision, I start off with number one, the possible change to the neighborhood character. The proposed addition is going to be basically a strict expansion of the existing garage towards the rear of the house. Barely seen from, or maybe not even seen from any of the surrounding neighbors in the front or to the rear. In the package that I did submit, the site plan, as you can see, has a substantial backyard, so the distances to any adjoining properties to the west, northwest, is pretty significant. The back of the structure is going to basically mimic the existing back of the garage, so again, I don't see any character change. Any other alternative solutions that would not require variance? Well, I think a standalone structure would not require a variance, but however, we would like to attach it to the existing garage. Mr. DiGiorgio is a contractor, and he also likes to work on restore his classic car, and he would like to also store that within his existing garage. So, whether the requested area variance is substantial, it is a 400 square foot expansion to an 800 square foot garage. However, given the scale of the property, the size of the property, I don't really think that it is substantial. In fact, lot coverage is certainly within the requirements or the regulations of the zoning code now. Consider whether the area variance will have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood. It's not blocking any views, it's not creating any obnoxious odors, it's not creating any taller structure. Again, it's strictly an expansion of the existing house. And is the situation self-created? Yes, it is self-created. Most variances are, but we don't think that this is one that would diminish the quality of the project, and the benefit certainly outweighs, to the homeowner, outweighs any detriment to the neighborhood. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
There's a wall between the garage and the addition. How is this considered a garage then? Even though it's attached to the garage?
That wall would be removed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That makes sense. That solves my problem. Any other questions? All right, is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone who'd like to talk to us about garages, expansions, knocking down walls? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter and move on to the next item on the agenda.
Next case on the agenda is case number ZB 1908-4, upon the matter of request by Joseph O'Donnell, RAAIA, acting as agent for Frank Quarantello for area variances to construct a 29-foot by 45-foot by 22-foot high storage building exceeding maximum permitted square footage and height on premises 1917 Portland Avenue in an R1 residential district.
Okay, again, good evening. My name is Joe O'Donnell, Greater Living Architecture, offices at 3033 Brighton Henry to Town Line Road.
And you're still under oath.
Okay. If I could, I would like to, I have an additional handout for the board members that we just generated in the last week. I'd like to hand over to, which is part of the presentation. And while we're passing those around, in a matter of time, I'll continue on. So we're here again tonight. We were in front of this board last year for an entirely different project, similar in scope relative to a storage facility, storage barn, which was located on the south side of the property. It was a much larger structure, was a little taller. We met with significant opposition from the neighbors, and we went back to the drawing board and decided to come up with something that was a little bit more palatable, in our opinion, and fit more in the character of the existing landscape of the structures on the building, and relocated it to the center. I don't know how many of the board members are familiar with the history of this property, but Frank Quarantello purchased it, invested a substantial amount of money in restoring the existing barn. There was a greenhouse structure that was in total disrepair, falling down, very unsightly at the time. He cleaned that all up. He cleaned up the existing home. It's a very well-presented residence now. And as some of you know from the history of this property and this application, Frank Quarantello is a collector of classic automobiles and motorcycles. Both of the existing structures he uses for some of that as well. And as his collection grows, he wants us to make sure that he can keep an eye on security for the vehicles and the motorcycles. So I handed out today another rendering showing the proposed structure in situ on the site. I thought it would be beneficial for the board members to see it in light of the letter we received from one of the neighbors that basically attacked the quality of the structure, the size of it, et cetera, et cetera. Again, going down through the standards, which I think are important to this case, along with some other explanations. This is kind of a unique case in that I think it stands on its own merits given the size of the property and the scale of the structures. At one time, this, I think, may have been, I'm not a historian of this property, may have been a farmland relative to the barn being there. But, so if I go down the standards, the possible change to the character of the neighborhood, as you see from the rendering we generated, it really, you're just really looking at almost exactly the way it looks out there today. I mean, there's not a significant relocation of the structure. We did move it back adjacent to the existing garage that was totally in disrepair and restored by Mr. Quarantello. And I also think that the rendering gives an appreciation for the distance that it is from the property line. So I don't believe that there is a change in the character of the neighborhood. Is there an alternative solution that not require variance? Certainly, that would be just not build it at all. However, it's a substantial piece of property, and again, it's something where the complete collection can be kept together and not have to be concerned with the safety and the damage to the vehicles if they were stored at a different location. So that's why we are seeking this variance. Consider whether it is substantial. I say if you look at the numbers, the size of the garage, and that it is, but again, relative to the scale on this site, I don't think that it creates a substantial difference in the views for the neighbors. You know, the other thing, I presented this at the last time we were here, is that This is an R1 district. Mr. Quarantello does have the right, without any variances, hopefully, to develop a single-family subdivision here, where you could have, I'm just guessing, Michelle had sent me the information for lot sizes, but let's just say, for argument's sake, 5 or 6 houses back there, each one of those having a garage with it as well. The comments from the neighbors were that this is, and I underlined some of the terms that they used. I think it was called, it was hinder aesthetics, quality neighborhood, littered with non-residential buildings. You know, one must keep in mind that if single-family homes were built back here, sheds could be put up right on next to property lines adjacent to these existing surrounding neighbors. You know, one thing I've learned in my 30 years of being an architect and in front of boards is that some residents have a tendency to think they're entitled to somebody else's the benefits of somebody else's property, and I just find that to be a little unfair. Mr. Quarantello has also offered to put up substantial landscaping around the perimeter. Should the board deem that to be a condition of approval, we could submit that formal landscaping plan. I'm giving some suggestions to kind of mitigate some of the concerns from the neighbors. So, moving on, whether the variance will have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions. Again, I point out that it doesn't create any obnoxious odors. It's an unheated structure. There might be some power out there just for lighting, but again, it doesn't have any obnoxious site lighting that would bleed off into the neighbors' backyards. So I don't think there's really any environmental conditions that are going to be created here. So, and again, obviously, number 5, of course, it's self-created. So, having said that, I would open up to questions from the board.
You mentioned that, you made reference to, and I asked when I saw this on the agenda to have us provided with copies of the application that was submitted for this property last September. And at that time, my recollection is that we were told that he needed this what it was then, I believe, a 4,200 square or 3,200 square building that he was asking for in order to house his collection. And we did not grant that. And now you're coming, he's coming back with an application for, I think this one, if I'm recalling, is 1,300, which is about a third of the structure that he asked for in September. So I agree with you that it's a substantially different request.
Mr. Chairman, I'm looking for some clarification. So on the application that I'm looking at, it still says there's 4,800 square feet that's requested. Is that the total of all the different garages and barns?
If we were to grant this, it would be 4,800 square feet there. There's 3,500 there now.
Okay.
All right, but my question is, in September, he wanted to put up this 3,200 square foot building because he wanted to house his collection. And we heard about his security concerns and everything else. And now he's coming in with a building a third of the size. And if we grant it, then I'm concerned we're going to hear in another year that he has 2/3 of his collection still that he needs to house somewhere, and he wants to put yet another building somewhere in the property, and because his property is so large, we should say, that's okay, it doesn't matter. But my concern is, at some point, he's going to be finished with this property, and his cars aren't going to be remaining there. And if I understand it correctly, what's being proposed is storage facilities for vehicles. And it's to house a collection of classic and very expensive cars, I'm sure, that he has been able to gather over the years. And he doesn't live there. So when he sells this property and somebody else comes in, what are they going to do with 4,800 square feet of storage space? And we're then potentially going to hear an application that because there's so much storage space, on the property. Somebody, in order to realize a reasonable rate of return, is going to need to use that to offer it to others for off-site storage of their stuff. You made a very good point. He could put 5 or 6 single-family homes in there with sheds and garages and wouldn't need a variance from us at all. And that's exactly what the zoning ordinance is suggesting that he should do with the property, is put that. And sheds don't, everybody, lots of people in town have sheds. That's a part of single-family residential living. Once the garage gets filled, you put a shed in the back, you fill that, the garage is still full. But we haven't granted anything like this in the, I think I've been on the board now 13 years. And we've turned down people who wanted to put up 1,600 square foot storages for things. I can recall one application that we granted that was a very unique one because it bordered up to the expressway. It couldn't be developed, and we let somebody build a structure to house his cars. He lives right there at the property, and it's a big garage that goes with the property. This is completely different from that. And I think it's a substantial change in the character of the neighborhood. I think that the alternative that doesn't require a variance is that he needs to find another place to store his car collection. Now, I know if somebody else has a car collection, they've opened a quote-unquote museum on Main Street, and they park all their cars in there, and I guess, maybe, I don't know, they allow people to come in and look at them and charge them for that or whatever. But the Staples building is vacant. With a few garage doors, he could store all of his whole collection in the Staples building. It's in a commercial district. It'd be secure. It's wide open. It's well lit. I don't see at all a need for this in an R1 neighborhood. And I don't think that the application, even if we take and ignore the 3,500 of square feet that's already there, I don't think it comes anywhere near to what needs to be shown to entitle him to a variance. Perhaps you can help me understand where I'm misguided in my thinking, but that's my thinking anyway.
I happen to agree with you.
Any other questions or comments? I think there's a lot of neighbors here that want to speak. Is there anyone here who wants to speak in favor of this application? We'll take that first. All right, those who wish to speak in opposition to this application, if you could line up and come up one at a time. I know there's several of you here.
Good. Oh, he's leaving the picture there so we can see it.
Oh, pass the picture around if you'd like.
Just for the record, there is a view shown from the west and from the northwest.
Yes, thank you.
So he wants to put that behind there, which is kind of behind the house. My name is Gretchen Rayberg. I live at 1873 Portland Avenue, 3 doors down from this property. We don't need any more commercial buildings or storage for someone's cars when he doesn't even live on the property. It's going to do nothing for the neighborhood. And as I'm thinking here, where the second barn is shown, the new construction, there is already a construction vehicle behind there, so it's getting ready with all the tools. It's not what we need on Portland Avenue. At 1843 Portland, to my immediate south, we have that great big storage brick bin, and God knows what they're doing to that. Then we don't need this.
Thank you. Next.
Sandy Ruddy, 60 Carlin Drive. I'm very nervous, so I'm going ahead of my husband.
It's quite all right.
I thank you for your thoughts, Mr. Hinman. I echo a lot of them. As I said, my name's Sandy Ruddy, and I live at 60 Carlin Drive. My husband and I have called this place home for nearly 26 years, and we've raised our 3 children there. I was very concerned and saddened when I spotted a public hearing sign in front of 1917 Portland Avenue once again while out for a walk one evening just a couple of weeks ago. We were here just 11 months ago for a very similar hearing regarding Mr. Quarantello's wishes to construct a very large storage building. Although Mr. Quarantello has scaled back the size of the building and shifted the building to another location on the property, I still have many concerns. Allowing this building to be constructed on 1970 Portland Avenue will most definitely change the characteristic of our beautiful residential neighborhood. A building of this size simply does not fit with the characteristic of our neighborhood. No other property in our residential neighborhood would have over, and I had calculated 4,180, but you had corrected that. If it's granted tonight, it would be 4,800. The neighbors should not have to sacrifice and lose the enjoyment of their backyards at the expense of a neighbor's hobby. And as you all know, and it was mentioned, this neighbor doesn't even reside on the property. Not only would the surrounding neighbors on Carlin Drive, Deirdre Drive, and Portland Avenue have to look at this additional storage building every single day, it would be larger than 2 of my neighbors' homes that surround 1917 Portland Avenue. 90 Carlin Drive is just 1,150 square feet, and 191 Deirdre Drive is 1,186 square feet, and both of these homes are single-story and not 22 feet tall as proposed by this application tonight. The concerns I have, and maybe the gentleman could answer after this closes, is what will this, what will this additional building do to the value of our homes? Who will want to purchase a home next to or behind a piece of property with multiple storage units on it? If this variance is approved this evening, will it be turning this parcel into a storage facility in a residential neighborhood? If granted, could this open the doors you had mentioned for the property owner to come back to this board again next year and ask for another variance for another building to be erected, and possibly even more in the years to follow? As stated last year by Mr. O'Donnell on 9/10/18, Mr. Quarantello continues to build his collection of classic cars and motorcycles. He also stated in his letter of intent this year, dated 6/12/19, Mr. Quarantello wishes to use the additional storage building to house his growing collection. Those statements are very concerning, as I feel that the more storage buildings that are allowed on the property, the more unique this piece of property becomes. We must think about when as you mentioned, when this property is sold at some point in the future, what could all of these storage units be used for? Will this open up the possibility for that future owner wanting a use variance for all of these buildings for some sort of commercial business due to the uniqueness? Could these buildings cause a hardship for a future owner and in turn devalue the surrounding neighbors' homes? So in closing, I ask that this board deny this area variance this evening and not allow Mr. Quarantello to construct a building of this magnitude for his personal hobby in a residential neighborhood. There are many other alternative buildings in the Rochester area in a commercial district for Mr. Quarantello to house and store his growing collection. Thank you all.
Thank you. Next.
Sorry, guys.
No problem.
Pete Ruddy, 60 Carlin Drive. Unfortunately, Mr. Chairman, you kind of took some of my thunder. Well,
There is
wait.
one thing that I wanted to mention, which I'm going to interject here, that agree completely with Mr. O'Donnell on, and just want to make it clear because I've said this before and I think it's worth repeating. When you purchase a piece of property, if it has a view of the river or woods or vacant property, you have no right to continue to have that and enjoy that view unless you purchase the property that you're viewing. But that's not a concern with this application, but it is a point that's worth mentioning because a lot of times we hear people come and tell us, well, if you allow this to be done, you're going to take away my view of something. Well, if you want to view that, you're welcome to buy that property and then nobody will take it away from you. But that doesn't, I just wanted to mention that in passing, and I realized I'd forgotten to do that. So I'm sorry for interrupting, sir.
That's all right. Couple things to start with. Mr. O'Donnell is correct. We have no right. He could put homes back there, and if he put 5 or 6 homes back there, although it will ruin my view, I'd much rather have it as a neighborhood than a storage facility. And Mr. O'Donnell even mentioned this facility, misspoke and mentioned facility when he was up here. I'm going to repeat quickly some of the stuff that you had mentioned. The neighborhood's still very concerned with the project. 11 months ago, he was here. He wanted the 3,200 square foot building. Now he's looking for a 1,300 square foot building. A year from now, he'll be looking for another 1,300 square foot building. The property already has 3,500 square feet of storage, and he's asking another 1,300, 4,800. That's 5 times the allowable, according to the zoning board, or the zone. The applicant is requesting a variance for reasons that's related to himself personally, as opposed to the improvement of the property. And we're concerned that this is turning into a storage facility in a residential neighborhood. By allowing this application, puts the neighborhood and the town in a bad spot today and in the future. I'd like, if I could get some clarification, let me just see here. I've got last year's in here, but in his letter of intent, I believe that he said it was a single family rented out to one family. Well, being as nosy as I am, I happen to be searching around, and again, I don't know if this is pertinent or not, but I'm going to pass these around. Upon searching, I found out that the house is actually being rented as a vacation rental by the owner. You can find that on VRBO, and there are 50-plus reviews on that website, which you can see some of it right there. So I guess it's really not a single family if it's a rental for vacation. They can rent it by the week, you can rent it by the day. Pretty substantial. And again, I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it was stated in his letter of intent that it was a single-family rental home. And I don't think that's really what it is. Not that we've had any problems, but I guess I'd just like some clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Gabriel Gonzalez, 171 Deirdre Drive. My backyard abuts up to this property here. I would first like to say, congratulate Mr. Quarantello on his success in living the American dream. And as my father used to say, it's a nice place, America, isn't it? And I don't begrudge him at all for having his collection. That's a great thing. However, as has already been stated, and I won't say too much more, I just want to be another voice reinforcing the same line of thought, is that an argument can be made that the changes that have been made with the barn and the other garage is already substantial and has already changed the property into a commercial property, but certainly, if not that, a third one would definitely change the use of this property into a commercial property from residential. Mr. Quarantello simply has outgrown this property, And unfortunately, he bought a residential property and intends to use it as commercial property. And that was, I assume, his intention from the beginning. But he maybe just didn't think it all the way through and think that how his collection would grow and the changes that would be necessary before he purchased the property. But I'm just not in favor, and I hope that you all see it that way. That Mr. Corntello has just outgrown the residential neighborhood and needs to find a commercial property that is established as such to house his collection. So yeah, now to second what my neighbor said, I'd much rather see houses back there. I like the view, and that's not, I mean, it's not his concern or anything. I mean, it's nice, but if it's going to change, I'd rather it change into a neighborhood. The tax base could use a lift, so that's all I have to say to add to whatever's already been said.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Is there anyone who'd like to talk to us about this application that isn't for it or against it? Mr. O'Donnell, is there anything you'd like to add? You're welcome to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. I think the term storage facility is a little bit of a misnomer. It's
Perhaps
not.
you could help me understand why, because...
Well, the term facility to me seems like it's like something that's in continuous operation daily where, there's public coming and going and things like that. I was going to ask the staff if they could, if there is a zoning code requirement for maximum size of shed.
Maximum size of a shed, 200 square feet. Anything over 200 square feet is characterized as a garage.
Okay. All right, I just was curious.
Yeah.
Just something I thought of while I was listening to the opposition. The first woman who spoke, I think she asked me to clarify something. I can't quite remember what she asked for. I should have jotted it down, but maybe irrelevant at this point. So that's really all I have to rebut. I do understand some of the neighbors' concerns. I know that was the other point. They're concerned of it becoming a commercial facility, but I don't believe the town zoning ordinance would allow any operation of a business out of this
It would.
location. Yeah.
But what the concern that they were alluding to and that I've raised is that if we have a single-family residence located on 8.2 acres with 4,800 square feet of storage in 3 separate buildings, or perhaps in the future 4 separate buildings, or 5 separate buildings as his collection grows, and then he's no longer there. Somebody now is going to come in, and they're going to make the argument that they need a use variance because the cost of the property and the cost of converting 4,800 square feet of storage space into single-family homes that would be allowed under the ordinance is going to be so prohibitive that they cannot realize a reasonable rate of return on their property, which could entitle them to a use variance, to allow for what's the most likely use that would be consistent with the property that would be able to realize a reasonable rate of return. Well, this is set up for storage, doesn't have utility service except maybe electric, so wouldn't that be a great place to open a mini storage facility right there in the heart of the neighborhood so everybody could put their stuff in? That's an argument that I foresee, and that's, I think, what they're alluding to, is that in the future it could be, granting this building could open the door to that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I guess my only comment to that would be, though, but now you're introducing a use that isn't even allowed in that zoning district, which would require a change in the zoning law itself.
This isn't allowed.
Well, I mean, personal storage for whatever size is, but when you say you're concerned, somebody's going to come in for a use variance with not reasonable return, that, to me, indicates that their intention is to operate a storage business out of there.
Right.
Which they
they're-
couldn't even get out of the gate on that application, given the fact that that use isn't even allowed in a residential district, a
Correct.
commercial rentable storage space.
Right, and
Yeah.
and the buildings can't be used, the argument would be, these buildings can't be used for single-family housing, which is a permitted use, or a fire station, or a church, or a daycare, or any of the other permitted uses in R1, because the cost of converting it from a bare utility storage facility to livable space is going to be so much that it's going to price it way out of the market in relation to the other homes, and therefore, we're entitled to a use that isn't permitted under the ordinance. That's exactly what a use variance is about. And that was my
understand.
concern with the 3200 one, was he was going to have lifts and, what's anybody going to do with that? Now he's scaled it back. That's true. This is a different application, but we're headed down the same path that we were before, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, just in closing then, because I know you've got a busy agenda here, is that I would just like to ask the board to not introduce conjecture into a future happening or some sort of event that may or may never happen.
No, this stands or falls on its merits.
Its own merits,
of adding
same with any other
1,300
application.
To
Right.
already 3,500 of square
Exactly,
foot
right.
storage. Right.
Okay, can I interject a current happening?
Well, I'm sorry, I couldn't see where the question was going.
Isn't renting a house as a vacation home a commercial operation?
No, I don't believe the town, go ahead.
A
Karen.
single
It is
family?
not.
Pardon?
It is not.
So I can rent my house as
Yep.
a vacation home?
Correct.
Okay.
The town does not have any provisions currently in the code.
That's interesting.
Okay,
All right,
okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
We'll close the case with respect to that matter and move on to the next
Can I
item
add
on our
one thing?
agenda.
There was also one letter of
Oh, yes.
opposition.
Well, the letter was already alluded to in the applicant's presentation, but we did receive a letter from Derek and Domenica Sargent at 70 Carlin Drive that was provided to everyone and is also, I believe, a part of the record pertaining to this case.
It is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next case on the agenda is case number ZB 1908-5. Upon the matter of request by Casey Rodriguez for area variance to continue parking a non-conforming commercial vehicle on premises 99 Summershire Drive in an R1 residential district.
First off, my apologies. Hello, I'm Casey Rodriguez, 99 Summershire.
Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So I'm addressing the board today, requesting a variance to park my food truck in the rear of my driveway behind my gated fence in front of my garage. The purpose is to have adequate parking and ease of access to my truck. I will be driving the truck on location to serve patrons of Monroe County. The food truck is my only means of income and true source of my business. The truck is clean and does not cause a blockage or eyesore to any neighbor surrounding my property. The truck is backed to the rear of my driveway and enclosed behind a gate for safety and convenience. The possible changes to the neighborhood are growth and support of a small veteran-owned business located in the heart of Arundecoit. Based on the requirements and zoning codes set forth by Arundecoit, there is no other solution to the parking of the truck other than this variance that I am requesting. Based on the space available in my driveway, there is no blockage to any entrance or exit to any door or structure. There will be no shortage of parking, wetland issues, or drainage issues caused by the parking of the truck. I also want to add something that I did not have on the original request, and I assume that you guys do have it in front of you. I wanted to give the measurements of my truck to you now. So 7.5 feet wide by 24.5 feet long. It is 8 feet 6 inches tall, and then if you account for the hood system, it's going to be at 10 feet 4 inches at the very top of that hood down to the ground. And I also submitted, when I submitted the application, photos, and I'm hoping that you guys have that in front of you, where you can see from a sidewalk view, a front residence view, and then I think those are the three I did submit. And then I have 5 of my surrounding neighbors, anyone that could see it from their driveway or their porch, signing in agreeance that it is not an eyesore, it's not an issue for them. So that's pretty much it.
And just for the record, the neighbors who signed are at 127 Summershire, 115 Summershire, both residents there, 94 Summershire, and 107 Summershire.
Yes, I did have.
Stopped reading last names off a while ago when I was running into problems reading them, although these are very well written.
That's perfectly fine. My neighbor to the exact left of me at that time was moving out of the home, so there was no signature and there's no one in that home at this point. I don't know exactly what the plans are for that residence, so.
You were here earlier.
Yes, sir.
How do you distinguish your application from the first case that we heard tonight?
Fearfully, I'll put that out first. That was a long, very long situation. So I know that you guys.
Probably an accurate term.
That is the best way I could describe that. So, for example, if you look at the photos from that gentleman in his situation, I definitely don't look anywhere near that, based on appearance-wise. My truck is at the very rear of my property. You cannot see my truck unless you actually walk up into my driveway, and it does sit behind a fence, which is closed at all times if the truck is on the property. That fence is never open. And also, to state nicely, I feel like my truck does look different. I see that Mr. Lippery, he had asked about parking the truck elsewhere. That is something that I'm definitely looking into. At the time of me buying my house in Irondequoit, I did not know that this was an issue. I actually came up to the office one day and was asking, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right stuff? Am I following all the laws? And basically they said no. And I was like, oh, great. So I then set out on this adventure of putting in this application. So I am just trying to do the right thing. So based on appearance, I do think I look different.
Let me interrupt you for a moment. You said you're looking to see if you can locate an alternate place to park it, correct?
Yes, sir. I'm hoping so.
So, would you be interested in exploring that and reporting back to us on your efforts in another month?
I'm always looking, so I don't want to say no, that's not at all workable. I was actually hoping, after listening to the gentleman's situation that you had earlier, he said something about RVs and how the RVs, and you guys stated the RVs are allowed on the premises from, you said April to October?
Sometime in April to sometime in the fall, yeah.
Okay.
October.
That would almost be perfect for the seasonality of food trucks, if that makes any sense, based on the fact that mine sits back and I am out of the way and it is not an eyesore. I feel as though I could figure out a way, if I could somehow get that variance to almost help that seasonality, basically. So I would have the allowance to park my truck in my driveway from whatever that is, April to October, because that's almost exactly what seasonality is for food trucks. Once you hit a certain temperature in the weather, you can't have your fire bottle, so like your fire extinguisher bottle, it can't go below a certain level. So that bottle actually has to be taken out of the truck. So I am no longer able to service the patrons at that point out of my truck. So then I feel more confident about finding maybe a storage area or something just like the RVs do or boats do. So if I could almost fit into something like that. So that was my kind of light moment where I was like, that may be where that you guys could see and let me be your one hoorah. That's exactly what I'm hoping for. So that's
Gotta give her credit.
Just for the record, the dates are it's April 1st to November 1st, so we're not estimating the time frame.
Okay, I knew it was something like
It was very close.
Other than that, I can keep answering as many questions. I'm trying, this is a very new space for me, a new business, a new adventure, so I'm doing what I can.
Mr. President, I did take when I visit the
this location, I did walk around. I also went to the adjacent yard where there's no resident. And I'm 5'10". My son says I'm 5'6", but I can barely see maybe about 2 feet of height above, even though it's 4 feet taller than the fence, and it didn't appear to be an eyesore because it sat so far back, actually behind our rear house line. So it just really is to the rear of our property.
Excuse me, I just also wanted to note that there were no complaints on file from code enforcement related to this particular property or this truck. The applicant actually came in inquiring about a business license might be needed for operation of a food truck, and then, casual conversation pursued, and here we are. So
So you brought this on yourself?
I'm avoiding asking questions from this point forward.
What kind of food do you have in the food truck?
I'm an owner-operator of Rollin' Spuds. We have loaded baked potatoes, anything from shrimp, and it's like a southern boil pot, and then we've got something for vegan, vegetarian. We've got Carolina barbecue. We have a Philly cheesesteak baked potato, and we have something called a sugar pot, which is just almost like a dessert and a sweet potato. And we have something for kids. And if none of that works for you, you flip our menu over on the back and you can build your own.
That's sort of irrelevant to the application, but I thought the people in the audience might want to know.
Perhaps you could sign up for the farmer's market on Thursday
I do
nights.
hope so, sir. I hope so.
I would have brought the truck with me tonight.
My only
I will
concern-
feed you if you say yes.
Does
that count?
for the record, she's kidding.
It was a
because
joke. Joking.
We don't want that on television. That's not good for
JK.
anybody.
My only concern is the concerns that were raised with the previous application, and that regardless of how this particular vehicle could be stored on this property, the way it's currently set up, that because it's not a variance to the individual or to the business operator, it's a variance to the property, that if you moved and operated your food truck at another location, somebody could come in and then store a different type of commercial vehicle there, I assume. Or is this?
You can actually specify, be as detailed as you'd like as far as variance granting with conditions. That's one thing the board can contemplate. As you'll see, you can be very specific in the conditions so that when the variance does stay with the land, you'd have to really replicate the exact condition in order for it to continue or carry on for a subsequent property owner.
Including the location on the property where
Correct.
the vehicle is stored?
Maybe most especially that, and maybe also the type of vehicle.
Could we make it specific to Rollin' Spuds?
Well, I don't know that you'd be that specific, but you might indicate the type of truck being a food truck, and with that's an option for the board to
Or
consider.
anyone named Rodriguez.
Oh dear.
Okay, your garage in the back,
Yes, sir.
have you looked into maybe taking out the double doors and putting a higher 12-foot door?
Mr. Evans actually asked me that same question.
I'm still in your time.
That would be fairly costly, and being a one-woman business owner, that's another thing I've looked at. However, our garage houses my husband's Harley, his work equipment, some saws and different things of that nature. So my first step is here in hopes that I can try and figure something out here before I go trying to build an extra so much onto the garage at that point. Also, I'd like to add, Mr. Evans asked me about a backup beeper. He said that some people do complain about that. My truck does not have a backup beeper as you were coming in. However, it does have a backup camera for safety measures.
Okay. I was just thinking of trade-off between the cost of renovation of the garage for a larger door versus rental for 6 months when you have to park it someplace else.
And that's something, it's all trying to figure out what the next steps are, but yes, it's all in just trying to figure out how to manage the situation at hand.
Have you looked into any other storage spots at this point?
Specifically speaking, no, I have not went out and actually asked. I've had different situations. This is a very, very new business, and it was very premature in me going and asking questions about business here in Irondequoit, and I found out that, hey, you are in violation of a code, and I just was trying to do what is correct in making sure that I'm,
I mean, we do have a number of storage areas, storage businesses around town.
yes, sir.
And the one that's close to your house is the new one that just opened up next to Wegmans. I don't
was
know.
just thinking of.
What's that?
I was just thinking of that.
Yeah, I know it might, and I haven't been in it yet, but they have the right side of it, if you're facing it, used to be the old Chase Pickin. And it was an open area that was actually fenced in and blocked in with a roof. And that truck would go in there if, it'd be a great spot for it.
Secured location
It's a
was,
secured facility. I don't know the cost, I don't know anything about it at that point. It'd actually be a good idea for the other fellow that was here also, because you're both close to your homes, right there at Hudson, next to Wegmans. Just food for thought. There are a number of areas around town that you could store it, and I can't imagine it'd be that costly.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
So did I hear that we're recommending tabling it since?
Well, I'd asked her about that. Would you like to look further into alternative options that might work for you so that if you find something that works, then you could either withdraw your application or we could take that into account, what you found by adjourning it for a month?
Because if we deny it, it can come for a year?
A year.
Before I say yes or no, may I ask, is it possible for you guys to address the one thing I did ask, which would fall into the seasonality of my truck being parked there, so that it would work in that avenue? Does that make sense? That would seem, personally, that would work the best for all situations involved.
But if we deny it, you can't apply for another year.
Yeah, if we make a ruling,
Yes.
then
I
that
have to
ruling's
wait.
gonna stand for a year.
Okay.
As opposed to looking into how cost prohibitive storage options are, coming back a month later.
Okay, and if we table, is it okay to leave my truck where it is?
I didn't hear you ask that.
It was a hypothetical, sir. That was a
Currently,
hypothetical
there's no
situation.
code violations currently? There's not currently any violations
this
or
is not
complaints,
subject to a
correct?
violation. There are no notices of complaint related to this particular application.
That doesn't mean it's okay, but figure out.
We can definitely table, and I do not mind one bit trying to figure out some other things and coming back to you guys.
All right, and
Just as another note, I do apologize. Generally speaking, in situations where a code violation or code compliance issue is present, the town won't pursue the code violation through court because it would want to have defer to the board. If somebody's making an application through this board, let that process play out before further pursuing any other code issues.
And one of the things that I would suggest is that you talk to the folks in the zoning and planning department, the building department, about options and stuff and work, because they will try and help you. I mean, let's face it, Arundecoit likes people living here and working and generating income, so.
Perfect. So yes, I'm completely in agreement that tabling it for now works for me, if it works for y'all.
Is there anyone here that wants to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone who'd like to talk to us about food trucks, potatoes, some kind of pot that you mentioned, farmer's market, anything like that? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter. Move on to the next case.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is case number ZB 1908-6. Upon the matter of request by Dave Ranalata, acting as agent for Bob and Lynn Stockmaster for area variances, to construct a deck with less than required front and setbacks and to install front yard fencing on proposed deck exceeding maximum permitted height, linear footage, and non-conforming fence type on premises 886 Washington Avenue in an R2 residential district.
Dave Renaletta, JDR Renovations.
Bob Stockmaster, 886 Washington.
And Lynn Stockmaster, 886 Washington Avenue.
If you'd all raise your right hands, do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
We are here to seek 3 variances to construct a deck on the property of 886 Washington Avenue. The 3 variances would be front yard setback, side setback, and final fence in the front yard that would exceed the maximum permitted height, the linear footage, and non-conforming fence type. Essentially, this deck's going to be constructed out of the highest quality, low-maintenance cellular PVC AZEK decking, which blends with the color of the neighborhood and the home, the surrounding natural environment. Based on the location of this property, this proposed deck would provide privacy and enjoyment for views of the Lake Ontario and homeowners and the adjoining neighbors. I have a picture here of the proposed vinyl deck. Go on in. Thank you. In addition to that, we also have a series of neighbors' signatures. Thank you.
I think that, didn't you submit a package with pictures?
Yeah, we submitted also a package of pictures with various different angles from the street and views, and each one of them are labeled, so you would be able to see that this particular lot actually is situated in such a peculiar way where it's at the end of the street, and there is a public walkway that divides their 2 properties because they actually own the 886 Washington Street, and then they also own the property that is towards the lake. So we're trying to maximize, since it's such a peculiar lot, we want to maximize the size of this deck by going up to the lot line on the right-hand side and then coming 16 feet off the front. But in all reality, there's no street, I guess, towards the west of this house. It kind of bends off, as you can see on the lot line, on the survey.
And the property to the north, for the other setback variance, is undeveloped and undevelopable, correct?
Correct.
It's a public right-of-way.
Yes, so the side, these setbacks are designed to create space between buildings, allow for safety, to prevent fires from spreading all over and allow access. None of those factors would seem to be relevant in this case because you can't see it from the street, most of what you're even talking about. And you're not, there's nothing within hundreds of feet of where you would be putting this deck, right?
Yep, that's correct.
And I'm also told that you're very enthusiastic about this project, right?
I am. Thank you. Yeah, I am.
For the record, we were presented with signatures from neighbors who indicate their support from 878 Washington Avenue. Mr. Hickey left his address off. 309 Lakefront, 5194 St. Paul Boulevard, and 315 Lakefront, all indicating that they were in favor of the application. Those would be the neighbors pretty much right around your property, right?
Yeah.
Chairman, may I also add that the application was reviewed by the Department of Public Works, which indicated that because the project is happening entirely on their private property, that there is no issue from the perspective of the right-of-way with DPW.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, the question I have is the way it looks on the site map is there's a sidewalk easement there that's at it looks like, based on the pictures, it's at the top of the hill, the very top, if I'm correct.
Which dotted line are you talking about?
I'm sorry?
Which dotted line are you speaking to?
Is it the footpath that runs in between your house and the lake, I believe?
Yes.
Is what you're,
So,
Mr. LaPerry's referring to.
in photo 4, okay? Got the hill from like where the telephone poles and the other fence there, the picket fence or the stockade fence at the bottom. That's your property, right, where that fence is?
No.
That is not?
No.
Oh, your property's further down.
Yep. After the stockade fence, you see the telephone pole?
Okay, those two telephone poles.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay.
It goes a little further than that. It goes out to the walkway.
So the set of stairs that are there, are those yours?
Yeah, that came with the property too.
Okay. So, but there's an easement at the top of those stairs for a sidewalk, which nobody ever uses anymore, right?
That's correct. I don't believe it's there.
Yes, I
I
didn't
mean,
know.
if there's one picture that was taken from the website, an overhead shot, it kind of shows it, I think.
Yeah, Mr. President, I didn't see a sidewalk when I walked through.
Well, there's
It's
there's
no
no
walk
pavement,
area.
there's no,
It's a public easement to the town of Arundecoit for the purposes of putting a sidewalk in if the town ever decides to.
having grown up in Somerville, I walked that path to the Bateau tot lot many times as a kid. So I am curious as to what you're getting at. Will that path still be accessible at the top of the hill once this deck is built?
According to the survey, where he's showing that he's asking to construct this deck, it would come up to, close to, but not interfere with, that 7-foot sidewalk easement.
Correct.
Should be a 1 foot offset from the
Yeah,
easement
it looks
to the
like
deck.
that would be a foot.
It says 1 foot on the,
Oh, okay.
so I guess the question is, at the one side of the deck, there's, 34 feet? On the wide side over by your driveway, there's 34 feet, and then it comes all the way down to, and I can't read the little print even with my glasses.
It's coming down to the door that comes out from the house, so you would come out from the house onto the deck
Right.
at the narrow end, and the part to the west is what would most likely be used most heavily.
Again, the question is, can you trim it back a foot or so? I mean, just so it's not so tight in the event that someday the town puts a sidewalk in there, they're not gonna be butting up against your, and then there's gonna be an outside fence there also, right? On the edge of that deck?
Only on the left side.
You're not gonna have any fencing out toward the lake?
It's going to be a cable fence. I have photos of that. It's actually a cable rail, 3 feet tall.
Oh, something that,
So it's gonna be an open fence, right?
Open for a view. So if you were sitting in their family room looking towards the lake, you wouldn't have any obstruction of view.
and that
It was-
fence will be on the top edge of the deck?
Of the deck, correct.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Nothing in front of the deck.
How high will the floor of the deck be off the ground at that point?
It varies. The elevation's around 18 inches for the most part, off the grade. And then at the far end, towards the front of the house, it's probably about 2 feet, more about 2 feet to 32 inches.
And just so the board can note, the building department would confirm compliance with New York State Building Code, but anything, you have to be at 30 inches or taller to require fall protection. In other words, guardrails are absolutely required up until 30 inches. It's discretion of the property owner.
So what you've shown us a picture of 3 different
Sorry.
decks.
All right, so yeah,
And this is not to show what it's gonna look like, this is to show what the fencing that is going to be to the north side of the deck is gonna look like, right?
you are correct, sir.
Okay.
It's gonna have that many wires in it?
Yes. Yep, no, there's no space more than 4 inches, 4-inch sphere could fit through for all those cables.
So it'll be safe.
Yep, so it's up to code.
Okay.
So this is gonna be an open fence? Is this roof? Yeah, but it's an open fence as opposed, because the application says they're asking for a variance for non-conforming.
It's on the west side. So on the west side of the deck, as you come down from the street in the driveway, you would see a
One of
fence
these?
that comes out and then a fence going back towards the lake.
Okay.
That's gonna be solid, right?
That would be a solid one, right?
It was labeled white privacy fence, if I'm,
Correct. That's gonna be like this one?
So
Correct.
both
Both
sides,
ends.
so when you're coming this
Right.
way or that way, and you're like, they can't see us on the deck, so it's for privacy, but in the front will be open with the cable rail, so it's visible.
I mean, my only concern is as the town, I mean, should we be that close to that sidewalk area? Or, I know it's never been used other than kids walking down there, but I mean, is that?
the Commissioner of
is that an
Public
issue?
Works actually reviewed the application and indicate there was no issue from his perspective with the application as presented.
Are there any other decks or patios that close to the sidewalk?
That, you know what, that I don't know. There might, off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to that question. I do know that there are some structures themselves that the house gets that close almost to the,
I don't know of any that the house gets that close, but.
This, actually, the corner of this house is a foot off the right of way.
yeah, so it's, again, because of,
There's some structures down farther that get close, but
yeah.
and from a practical standpoint, I think in the last 100 years, Arundecoit always had a right of access to walk down through there, but I don't think they ever intended to put a sidewalk, a paved sidewalk.
Yeah, it's a, yes, I would concur with that.
That would be my only concern. I mean,
Right.
Obviously, it's.
Yeah, I don't, it's not my, I have no awareness of any eminent or even long-term plans to formalize a walkway in this area.
corner of these white houses, right
Is-
on it.
I got a question for staff. The fence that they're talking about, is that really a railing or is it a fence? Is it a railing on a deck?
Well, it's, the railing on the deck is, there's fencing on decks, there's a provision in our code that speaks to that specifically. I'm not sure if that portion of fence is actually subject to this board's
So that's what I was just wondering. I just
review.
kinda-
Correct, and just in noting the height, or the proposed height of the deck as it relates to the ground, even though it varies, it sounds like it never gets to the point where it's absolutely required by New York State Code
Yeah.
to be there for fall protection. It's at certain height that you absolutely have to have guardrails that conform. If they do install guardrails, the building inspector will ensure that the guardrail itself meets New York State Code
Building code.
with respect to the no opening greater than 4 inches, so that
42-inch height or
and,
whatever it is.
yeah, so in the height requirement may not rise, because again, this is more decorative in nature, and it might be more of a function of the property owner's preference to have some kind of a physical barrier to the top of their deck. But the height requirement of the guardrail comes into play only at the 30-inch deck height point.
All right, so do we need to grant a variance for the exceeding the maximum permitted height, like it?
That's for the front portion, that's the white vinyl fence
Over by the driveway.
on Washington.
Washington side,
Yep.
okay.
No, there's a lot of fence going on, we're trying to keep it straight.
Okay.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Step right up, sir.
Tim Camp, 309 Lakefront. I am in favor of this project. I'm directly to the east of the Stockmasters. It really doesn't impact me. I can't really even see this from my house, even though I'm right next door. It's not impeding any right-of-ways or any beach rights that seems to always be a hot topic down in the Somerville area. There is a town sewer easement along the front, 20-foot wide sewer easement. They come nowhere near that. They own both parcels, and I'm sure it'll stay that way. So to go right on the property line on the north side, I don't see where that's really a big problem. So that's about all I have to say. I hope you are in favor of this request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak in favor of this application? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone who'd like to talk to us about rights-of-way, decks, fencing, guard, step right up. See, there's a reason we have this third category.
Hi, my name is Larry Borowski. I live at 853 Washington Avenue, and I want to welcome you to the neighborhood first of all.
Thank you, sir.
My only concern is that the beach path, our beloved beach path that we've been using for, oh my God, I've lived in Somerville now for almost 50 years, and we use that beach path quite a lot. And I guess someone mentioned that it's hardly used. It's not hardly, it's used a lot.
I didn't say anything, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, it's used by a lot of people.
No, that comment was directed to the 7-foot sidewalk easement that is located about a foot off of the corner of the house and runs diagonally.
Oh,
across,
okay.
Not the beach path that goes.
Yeah.
We know that's heavily used. We've
Oh,
had
okay,
experience with
okay.
that in the past.
See, and the other path that leads to the beach, that's used quite a bit too by all the people that live on Washington Avenue and a lot of people that live on the other side of, Wabash and, all those houses that are.
You're talking about the footpath that runs along the pole in the stockade fence line?
Yes.
That, according to the survey, that would be approximately 20 feet or more away from what we're talking about?
Something like that, yeah. My only concern, though, is that, see, over the years, the neighborhood has been getting a little bit restrictive, okay? A lot of the people that have houses along the beach path refuse to, at times, let people pass through. They assume that it's because their land, they own it, we have no public right. The beach path theoretically starts from Delta Terrace and goes all the way to Westage, all the way down. People are destroying the sidewalk on the other side, and there was never a sidewalk on our side, but, we want to keep that beach path open to all the residents to, enhance our quality of life and so that we can enjoy the tot lot and, all the little wonderful things that Somerville has to offer. It's a really beautiful place, and I hope that we always, can have that, for everyone. But anyway, I was just concerned about that. There's your house, okay? And their yard goes like this, and then there's a little hill that goes down, and then there's the beach path, okay? And then from there's a hill that goes down to the beach. Will any of your buildings...
Excuse me, sir. I'm so sorry. You need to direct your questions or comments to the board.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was just curious if that was going to affect the beach path. That's all.
According to the survey and the details of the application, the answer to that would appear to be no.
Okay. Then I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Hi, Anita O'Brien, 872 Washington Avenue. I think I'm echoing a little bit of the long-timers position with concern that any of your perspective on what's being presented in that area take into consideration the fact that as deed holders, we do have access, we have rights to those things. So just making sure that it does, in your list of 4 or 5 requirements that they meet, that it isn't changing the culture of the community, where we value allowing people to access those spaces, and being part of that. I think that's really a big part of my request. And just out of curiosity, why does it have to be outside of the zoning requirements in terms of, why does it have to be higher than what's usually permitted, or the setbacks different than what's usually permitted?
From my understanding of the application, the homeowner essentially wants to replace a small portion of the grass with a deck so that it's a level surface that can come straight off of the house onto the deck and use the same space but a little higher elevation, and that the fence is only to provide privacy on the deck, and it'll be open from the deck out to the lake. So it's only a small portion, as people would walk by from the end of Washington and down to the lake, if that's the way they were going, they wouldn't be able to see the deck. But as soon as they got past the edge of the deck and got further down the hill, they'd be able to see everything going on the deck. So
It does make me smile that, I appreciate that they're going to have a view with that model, because that would be odd to cut that view off for themselves. But I think that, just, one step further and the privacy doesn't make a ton of sense. I think if you haven't seen that space and understand what we're talking about from that access point of it, if there's any complication with the posts of the structure being in that walkway where people do round that corner quite a bit, it's used every day, that would be another, I think, safety concern, that if it's right where people are going to be walking, not to say we're walking on their property, but if there was some kind of safety issue with that, that would be another consideration. So just wanted to, it's not a yay, it's not a nay, it's let's talk about building structures right by property or by public access spaces.
if, in looking at the photos that were submitted, there's a couple of trees that go along the front property line. This is going to be to the east side of those trees.
So on the front, that front north beach access piece. The walkway, the public
northwest
right-way.
corner of the property is where the deck's going to be there in part, and that's where the fence would be. But it's going to be on the inside of the trees.
When we say front, we mean the side facing Washington Avenue, I believe.
Okay, so I'm talking about, I think, the safety issue on the north side, the beach front side of the house. So if the deck itself is going to run from that corner line across to their steps, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
It's going to be offset a foot from what the easement is, but even more than that, from what the survey shows as the footpath that's actually used.
And I apologize, I haven't had a chance to see the
No
actual
problem.
drawings of it, but that would be just another safety concern if they're close enough for any kids falling into it on their bikes or things like that, so.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.
I am curious, just for the applicant, those large trees are not going to be removed, or they are going to be removed?
They're not going to be removed. They're going to be thinned out a little bit, just
Okay.
for the expense of the deck and having it fall on there. I didn't want that, so.
Okay, I'm just curious.
And just to make it clear, I know the corner she was speaking of, the deck, it will be inside the trees. And as you walk down that walkway, it's on a hill. To the right as you're walking that way, it's on a hill. So the deck will be on top of the hill. So if you're riding your bike or whatever, you'd have to come up a pretty sharp hill to get up to where the deck is. It's not going to be.
So it's set back far enough?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's the easement and there's the length of the hill, which is pretty far. It's pretty far.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right, we'll close the hearing with respect to that matter and move on to the next item on our agenda.
Next case on the agenda is case number ZB 1908-7, upon the matter of request by David DeForte for a use variance to allow professional offices and other uses permitted in the R6 zoning district on premises 351 Empire Boulevard in an R1 residential district.
David DeForty, 18 Belterre Lane. Mark Natale, 351 Empire Boulevard.
You'd both raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
We are seeking a use variance that was granted in 1973 for interior decorating business in this address, and strictly interior decorating business at this address. We purchased this property from Boris, I forget his last name, Kopit, about 6-8 months ago. We were not aware that it was not a use variance for like R6. We also own the property next door at 337 Empire, which has a use variance for R6. We just assumed it was the same use variance for this property also. That's us not doing our due diligence, obviously.
So the property next door to yours, if I understand your application correctly, received a use variance from this board. Obviously, none of us were on it.
Yeah.
In 1985, that let them use anything that would be allowed in an R6 zoning district. But your property immediately to the east was granted a use variance by this board 12 years before that limited it to interior decorating?
Correct, sir.
Okay.
And like I said, that's for not doing our due diligence, we just assumed it had the same use variance because there was a business in there for all those years. We just assumed it was the same as the one next door.
So in 1973 and 1985, this board made findings that a reasonable rate of return could not be realized from the property as zoned and allowed for alternative uses because of that fact, and all you want to do is change and expand a little so that the interior decorator could have a professional office in your building if they wanted, but not necessarily be limited to that.
Correct. We have had no luck finding an interior decorator. So we would just like to have the same capacity to look for anybody in R6 as a doctor or accountant, somebody along those lines. We've had numerous people look at it, and obviously we're kind of pigeonholed there.
If I was looking at the list, I think one of those was an attorney, wasn't it?
Yeah, yes. And since that, our realtor has kind of fired us, basically, because he's showing all the property, he can't rent it to anybody.
Because he doesn't have an interior decorator.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So this is going to be an open-ended use variance for...
No. I think what you're requesting is that the use variance that was previously determined to be merited by the economics of the property be amended to allow for more than the interior decorating business, but only the uses that are permitted already in an R6 residential district.
Correct.
Which the neighboring property was granted 12 years later.
Correct.
Which includes single-family dwellings, churches or similar places of worship, parish houses, convents, rectories, or parsonages, schools, fire stations without club facilities, professional offices for attorneys, physicians, physical therapy, physicians associates, etc., real estate and/or insurance offices, barber shops, and beauty parlors.
And if I could just interject, it might be wise not to reference the R6 designation and rather just the uses that you want to permit in case that R6 district regulation is amended by the town board at some point in the future.
So what you're asking for is to change it from an interior decorating business to professional office space.
Or whatever else is allowed in R6 district.
Right.
Currently.
Currently. We're not looking for anything beyond that. I mean, obviously, whoever would attempt to rent it would have to go before the town anyway to try and open a business there. We're not going to open a business, obviously. We're just trying to rent the property.
So a new use would actually require site plan approval through the planning board.
Oh, okay.
And potentially, if there was some, site elements that could not be met by the current location for the intended use, you might be seeing a variance or two coming before this board, depending on parking requirements or other things related to a future use at the property. So he is correct that somebody could not move in just by right, they'd have to get site plan approval.
Okay.
So it's kind of a, there's a whole bunch of different uses that we could allow.
So as I understand it, you've got two properties that are side by side on the south side of Empire Boulevard. The property on the west has a multitude of uses that are permitted, whereas the property that these gentlemen own can only be used for an interior decorating business.
I got that part.
Yeah, so they want to have parity with the neighbor to the west. So that's what they're asking for.
And just so you're aware, when we took this property over, it was dilapidated.
No, I'm 100% with you as far as doing something with it.
Okay.
I just want to know how we're gonna word it. Or how we're gonna make the motion.
Well, I mean, as a practical matter,
You know,
looking at your property, it would seem that it's not suited for a number of the uses that are
Right.
permitted. So essentially what you're looking for would be professional offices, real estate or insurance offices, barber shop or beauty parlor, and employment and travel agencies, right?
The barber shop and beauty salon are the most common ones that we've gotten requested from.
We've had a boutique, inquiring about a boutique.
So if,
R6 does not include retail sales. I think that's probably what you might indicate is professional office or personal service types of operations, because that would describe the barber shop or the insurance agency. As far as an umbrella that would capture those varying lists of potential uses, that terminology would be in keeping with what is currently allowed in the R6 zoning district.
all right, because there's other uses too that wouldn't really fit the property, funeral homes.
Church.
Nursing homes.
Right.
Yeah, all right, so that's what you're looking for is those uses. So if we limited it to that, that would enable you to get some return on your investment.
Correct.
Okay.
Do you have a problem if it's limited to one tenant only? It's kind of a smaller
Oh,
building.
yeah, it's only gonna be one tenant, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll open it up to public input. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone who'd like to talk to us about interior design or office space or anything like that? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this case and move on to the next application.
Next item on the agenda is case number ZB 1908-8. Upon the matter of request by Timothy and Sandra English for an area variance to construct a front porch with less than required front setback on premises 472 St. Joseph Street in an RR Rural Residential District.
Hi, I'm Sandy English, and I live at 472 St. Joseph Street.
Tim English, 472 St. Joseph Street.
Raise your right hands. Do you, both of you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are at a rural residential district, and our current setback is 34 feet 8 inches, and we would like to put a front porch on our split level. We have an artist drawing or the architectural drawing. Basically, with the northwesterly winds, that's the most comfortable spot on our property. We've talked to the neighbors, nobody is opposed to it. It's going to be well hidden by all the trees that we have out front. And currently, we sit out front, and we built a little platform because we didn't like sitting in the dirt, and so we'd like to put on a porch. We think it will add a lot of architectural interest to the property and the house.
The architectural drawings that are being passed around, the question that I had, is this a porch or is this a front deck?
It's a front porch.
Okay, so it's gonna have like a roof on it?
There is a roof.
Pillars and a roof.
In the drawing, it looks kind of like the front of Mount Vernon.
Yes.
A little smaller, but
Yes. And it's only going to be like a one step up. It's not going to require any type of railing or anything like that.
and how wide is it going to be?
At 9 feet 8 inches.
Okay.
And that's in order to give us enough, we had to do that in order to get enough clearance headroom, because it's kind of a low.
Any questions or comments?
Great idea.
It is. I mean, it's the best place in the world to sit in the summer.
Deck on Washington, if it's approved, might be a little hard. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone who'd like to talk to us about porches and where the best place to sit might be? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this case and move on to the next case on our agenda.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is case number ZB 1908-9. Upon the matter of request by Danielle and Carol Park for an area variance to install 6-foot-high side yard fencing exceeding maximum permitted height on premises 2222 Bayshore Boulevard in an R1 residential district.
Good evening.
Evening.
I'm Daniel Park. My wife Carol and I live at 2222 Bayshore Boulevard.
If you'd raise your right hands.
Sorry.
That's all right. Do you swear or affirm that everything you say tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay.
Our project is, a variance is simply to install a fence, which would be a continuation of a fence on the northwest property line along the side of our house. The reason for the variance is to replace the obstruction, which was a 6-foot hedge that had been removed last year by the other property owner. And I'll offer these pictures which show the reason for why we're looking for this obstruction. I believe the fence is in line with other properties around the block. There are several similar around the entire block. It will, I believe, improve the view from the front of the house as cars are going by because of the view that it is going to obstruct. And that's the 9 yards of it.
Is that gate going to stay where it is?
Yes,
So this will just come out?
to the front of the house.
Have you
Correct.
thought about moving the gate with the end of the fence?
We could, I don't.
It just seems odd to have a gate in the middle of sort of a hallway
Yeah.
of fence and house.
Yeah, I don't see that as an issue to move it. We just never thought about doing that because it's existing.
Just a
It
thought.
would become more of a
object, I think, if we did that, where I think I would like to put some kind of a plant at the very end of the fence, maybe an arborvitae or whatever, and it would almost just not appear to be there, I think. It just would be more sightly.
So would this fence, if I understand correct, this fence would just run in a north-south direction? It's not going to be tied to the house at all?
No.
Okay.
Say gate.
Mhm. It'd be the same kind of stockade fence as what you have now at the back of the
Exactly.
house, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Same color.
It's also going to run inside the property line by about a foot and a half.
About that, yes.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? No? Seeing none, we'll open it up to public input. Is there anyone who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Anyone who'd like to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone who'd like to talk to us about fences, gates, or anything like that? Arbor reading? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter. Oh, I'm sorry. Step right up, sir.
I just have a question that, I'm Richard Platania. I live at 2236 Bayshore Boulevard. I'd just like to know about the gate. Is there going to be a gate at the end? Or the gate that's there right now, is going to move it to the end?
If I understand the applicant correctly, the gate and the fence that's there now is going to stay there right where it is, and he's just going to run a 6-foot tall stockade fence in line with the existing fence behind that gate that goes north-south. So what it will do is create a walkway that will lead up to the gate from the front of the house, from the front side of the house.
A walkway?
Well, it would be an open space.
No gate?
No gate in the front.
The gate's only going to be where it is now?
Where it is now is what
Just
he...
put a wall up there?
He's going to put a wall and then 6-foot fence on the...
Beautiful. If that's what they want, they can have it. It's fine with me.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak with respect to this application? Seeing none, we'll close the hearing with respect to this matter, and the board will be in recess until 9:50. applicant for 80 Cambria, I believe, left. 9 Madison Terrace is still here. So it's working out exactly the theory that I used at the beginning, right? First applicant leaves and the second is still here.
There you go.
57 Ridgeport Drive,
Before we get out of here.
1917 Portland Avenue. 99 Summershire, she's left. 886 Washington, they've left. 351 Empire, they've left. 472 St. Joseph's, they've left. 2222 Bayshore, they're here. All right. So, starting with the second case on our agenda pertaining to 9 Madison Terrace. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll move we approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Did you want to make
Yeah, I don't,
findings?
actually, I don't believe that oh, that's the cheat sheet, that's what I was looking for. I don't think this application is going to change the nature of the neighborhood up there on the terraces. The new home's going to actually improve upon some of the homes that are up in that area. Because of the nature of the terraces and the properties up there, there aren't too many alternatives that would not require variance. Making the house narrower and longer just doesn't seem to make sense. I don't think the variances are substantial for that neighborhood. The lots up there are extremely small, and to get a reasonably sized living accommodations on it, you're going to require these minimum variances. I don't believe the variances are substantial, and I don't, it is self-created, but it's the nature of that area. If you want to build on those lots, you have to take them the way they are. Or you have to wait till 2 or 3 lots can be combined into one, and since there's already homes on the other 2 adjoining lots, it's not a viable option.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, nobody's absent. We are fully constituted. Thank you. The next application, where the applicant is still present, is 2222 Bayshore Boulevard. This is also a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I make a motion that we approve the application as written. It's not going to change the character of the neighborhood. There's no real alternatives. The alternatives was the hedgerows, which was torn down. The request is not substantial, and it won't have any adverse on the physical environment of the neighborhood. And it wasn't self-created because the resident didn't tear the agreed upon hedgerows down. It was the neighbor that took the actions. So I think we should approve this as written.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. We are all present and fully constituted. Now, turning to the
Have a good night.
applications for which applicants are no longer present. What did I just do? Oh, there it is. Going back to the top of the agenda with respect to the application pertaining to 80 Cambria Road, does anyone, this is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll make that motion for 80 Cambria Road, 80 Cambria Road, it's late in the evening, that we deny the application. I do believe that it does change the character of the neighborhood. I believe also there are alternatives to parking that van somewhere else. I do believe that it's a substantial request that, and, you know, it's one of those things, I wouldn't want that truck parked next door to my house. It does affect, physical and environmental. I mean, there was neighbors that did bring in a lot of pictures about how there's a lot of oil spillage from that truck, or both the trucks for that matter, that are out on the driveway and out on the road. So, that's not the only reason, but that's a good reason. It is a self-created situation, but it is not one I believe the town or the town residents need to have to worry about.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. Board is fully constituted. Moving on to the next application pertaining to 57 Ridgeport Drive. Does anyone wish to make a motion concerning this application, which is a type 2 action for seeker purposes?
I'll make a motion again, 57 Ridgeport Drive. This is the gentleman that would like to extend the back of his garage. I believe that this will not change the character of the neighborhood. It's actually a pie-shaped lot that is very large in the back, and it's very far from the neighbors. It is not a substantial size, I don't believe. I don't think it's a substantial request. Alternatives are not to do it, but again, I don't believe this is going to be a physical or environmental issue in the neighborhood. And again, character of the neighborhood is not going to be hurt at all. It's kind of tucked behind the house. Nobody will even know it's there other than him. I believe it is a self-created issue. He just wants a little larger garage. It is not overkill. It is a nice setup for his home.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. The board is fully constituted. Next item is an application pertaining to 1917 Portland Avenue. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. I would make a motion that we deny the variance as requested.
Second.
I would make the following findings of fact with respect to this application. A substantial change to the character of the neighborhood would result from the granting of this application. The alternatives that do not require a variance are the ones that make the most sense, and that is to store his collection of ever-growing collection off-site. It is a substantial request. He's asking for another 1,300 feet of storage space, which is, he already has 3 times roughly that storage space on the property, and it is substantially more than we have ever granted in the past or would be justified. It would have a detrimental effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood, and this is an entirely self-created situation where the applicant is asking to have the town exempt him from the zoning requirements in order to satisfy his wish to store the collection that he acquires and continues to grow. And I don't think that there's any question that the detriment to the neighborhood is more than outweighs any legitimate benefit to the property. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. The board is fully constituted. Next application will pertain to 99 Summershire Drive. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. With the consent of the applicant, I would move to table the application, and I would move to table it so that the applicant can explore other alternatives that might not require a variance, and failing that, can give us information that might be useful to us in evaluating her application in comparison with others.
Second.
All those in favor, any discussion?
We're just tabling for the 1 month?
Yes. Well, we're tabling it. So, I mean, I think she has to ask to have it put back on in September, or we can...
No, so now it was advertised this month as a public hearing. It'll be on the future agendas as a tabled application. If memory serves me, I don't think anybody came up to speak at this public hearing this evening,
There
so.
were nobody spoke.
Yeah, so you're safe to just you'll have to have a motion to bring it off the table next month, and staff will be in touch with her to make sure if she's got any new information she wants to provide the board, she can do that before next month's meeting.
And she'll know that she has an opportunity to come here next month as well.
We will communicate that to her as well.
All right, if she wants to delay to October, she could do that too, but I think we start running into problems when we're 60 days out, right?
Well,
Not with her consent?
not with her consent.
Okay, all right. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions, nobody's absent. The board is fully constituted. Next item on the agenda is application pertaining to 886 Washington Avenue. This is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll move that we approve the application. I think it'll improve the character of the neighborhood. It looks like a beautiful deck. As we talked about, it's not going to affect the other neighbors' access to the beach or on that path, on the beach walkway. Alternative solutions beyond regrading your lawn or that sloped area in front of their house, I don't think that's realistic given the right-of-way that's there. And also probably cost prohibitive. The variance isn't substantial, given the fact that they're owning the adjacent property to the north of the property line. I don't see any adverse effects on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood. Again, it's not going to block the neighbors' access to the beach or to the path or to other areas that they want to go. And the situation is self-created, although I don't think that it is a major concern.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. No one is absent. The board is fully constituted. Next item on this on the agenda is the application pertaining to 351 Empire Boulevard.
Excuse me, Chairman, I'm so sorry. I'm realizing just now that you probably don't have the printed copy of Part 2 and Part 3 for the use variance, which would be an unlisted action under seeker. I'm happy to walk you through it verbally, if that's okay.
Oh, it's an unlisted one?
Yeah,
Even
so,
though the use variance has been granted?
yes, because it's changing the
Oh, okay.
conditions of the use variance, so happy to walk you through that if that's okay with this board.
I would love you to take us on that
Okay.
walk. Thank you.
So, this is obviously a property that's operated as a professional use in that it was a very specific professional use since 1973. It did house a business and has the property would require future site plan review for any new occupancy, and that would help to ensure that any new tenant within any of the potential allowable uses, if granted a use variance, would be an appropriate fit for the site as far as functionality and could the site host it. The property's already developed, the building's already there, there are already parking spaces, so any future changes to the site would be subject to review by other boards and potentially the town engineer, and that would help to mitigate any potential uses. There is, as far as consistency with character of the neighborhood, neighboring properties have similar use variances granted, and so that's consistent with neighboring uses as well as properties, commercial properties located across the street and in close proximity to this one. For those reasons, we're recommending a negative declaration for the purposes of seeker.
I would make a motion that we make a negative declaration for seeker purposes.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Nobody's absent. Motion carries 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. Nobody's absent. We're fully constituted and we're making a negative declaration. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we grant the use variance for this application based on the following facts and findings. As indicated by the applicants, they tried to rent it out to numerous people, and in the application there was a list of people that were interested, but after reviewing the zoning laws, they found that they were unable to appropriately rent it. Unique circumstances with the 2 parcels that are owned by the applicant. One of them is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but the one property that they own is...
I'm not sure that he owns the
Oh.
neighboring property.
Oh, he does not own
But
that.
he owns both?
No,
Yeah, I thought he did too.
But he was relying on, he was pointing out the difference between adjoining properties where one has multiple uses allowed and one is restricted to the interior decoration.
Right. And so in that sense, he just wants to open up opportunities to be able to rent out the location. So it is a unique circumstance in the fact that the only use at this time is for an interior decorator. The issue is not necessarily self-created, as he did purchase the property, and he knew going into it that it wasn't, that it was for an interior decorator, but he tried to find other opportunities to rent out the property, but unfortunately was unable to do so. And based on what the applicant presented, it wouldn't really create any change to the character of the neighborhood. In fact, it would allow it to be have a purposeful use.
I'll second that motion. I will also add to the findings of fact that this board has previously in 1973 and 1973 with respect to this property, in 1985 with respect to the adjoining property, presumably made findings that as zoned, the property, the owner cannot realize a reasonable rate of return and thus was entitled to a use variance, and that the property has been operated outside of the parameters of the zoning ordinance for the last 46 years without any apparent negative effect on the neighborhood. Expanding the uses, and I would, if you would accept an amendment, I would like to limit the uses to what we talked about with the applicant for what's allowed in R6, that would be professional offices, beauty, or parlor shops, or
Barber shop, I thought.
barber shops, travel agent, insurance agent, what was that listing? You had a listing of the R6. I think it was in the statute. I don't think it was.
Oh, I could pull it.
Was it office space and like personal services? Is that what?
Yeah,
Excluding
personal
retail.
services,
It's no retail.
professional office space,
And personal services.
personal services, employment and travel agencies,
I have it here. Do you have it in front of you as well?
yeah, so it would be the uses that are referenced in Article 7, Section 235-22, C 5, 6, 7, 9, and 9. Thank you.
Do we want to limit it to one tenant?
And limit it to one tenant at the, on the property. Is that okay?
Sounds good, Jim. Thank you.
Any discussion?
We need a second. Did we get a second?
I seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. We are fully constituted. The next to last item on our agenda is the application pertaining to 472 St. Joseph Street, which is a type 2 action for seeker purposes. Does anyone wish to make a motion with respect to this application?
I'll move that we approve the application on the basis that it's not a substantial request. It'll improve the character of the neighborhood. I think it'll be really nice. I think it'll improve the look of the house. It should go fit right in with the way the house looks. No issue with environmental or adverse physical effects. No complaints from neighbors. The situation is self-created, although I don't think it's substantial. And I think the benefits outweigh that.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. The board is fully constituted, no one is absent. Last item on our agenda is with the packets of information for tonight's meeting. Everyone should have received a copy of the draft of the minutes from our meeting on July 1st of this year. I would make, does anyone have any suggestions for any additions or corrections to the minutes of that meeting? Seeing none, I would move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries, 7 votes in favor, no opposed, no abstentions. We are all present and fully constituted.
I'm sorry, who was the second on the minutes?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
And now we are adjourned.
You're here.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Irondequoit Zoning Board on ICAT Government Access. hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Irondequoit Zoning Board on ICAT Government Access.